Chapter 353. On the 21st of February in the second year of Gaia, it was the first day of the new year. The north wind blew strongly throughout the night. The bustling New Year's Eve had become a thing of the past. A new year was about to arrive. The thin morning mist rolled up and down in the north wind, making it look like smoke. Shanghai City, which had been sleeping for the whole night, was shrouded in the morning mist, as if it was wearing a veil made of clouds and mist. It was like a fairyland. Under the contrast of the smog, the central commercial street looked like a market in the sky. Shanghai City began to wake up along with the crowing of roosters. The city gate opened, and the merchants who had temporarily spent the night outside the city began to line up to enter the city. Among the merchants, there were also a few commoners who had come to the market. The central commercial street and the commercial district on the side were the first to wake up. The shop assistants pulled themselves together and, under the instructions of their owners or shopkeepers, moved the doors of the shops, swept the floor, and arranged the shelves, preparing to welcome the first batch of customers. From the first day of a new year until the Lantern Festival, Shanghai City would hold the Mazu Temple Fair that would last for half a month. Countless gentry and civilians of Chuanzhou would once again come to Shanghai City to participate in this grand event. Not only that, the people of the counties under Lianzhou County would also come to Shanghai City one after another to visit their relatives and friends or buy all kinds of goods. The Mazu Temple Fair was no longer limited to worshiping Mazu, but had become a comprehensive grand gathering. It was the annual festival for the old people of Lianzhou County to go to the market and have fun together. The area along the inner city river and the central commercial street became the busiest places in the city. The crowd was like weaving, shoulder to shoulder, in the endless stream of horses and carriages. It was an unprecedented grand occasion. The hawking of merchants, the greetings of acquaintances, the occasional quarrel, the playful sounds of children, and the whispers of young ladies gathered together to form a scene of the 100 lives of mortals. Shanghai City gradually had the atmosphere of a giant city. For Ouyang Shaw, his schedule in the morning was completely occupied by the sacrificial ceremony. Early in the morning, Ouyang Shuo, with the help of Zisu, put on the ceremonial robes given by the imperial court and was about to be crowned. As the saying went, clothes make the man, while the saddle makes the man. With the crown on him, Ouyang Shuo's temperament changed, and he really had the atmosphere of a feudal lord. Coupled with the blessing of the dragon and phoenix bringing auspicious pendant, the golden Qilin seal, and the power of the emperor derived from the inner canon of the Yellow Emperor. Ouyang Shuo's prestige skyrocketed. The quantitative change had finally triggered a qualitative change. To describe it in layman's terms, it was a domineering aura. It was so awe-inspiring that ordinary people couldn't look at it. The might of a marquis had materialized and made people fearful. Everywhere Ouyang Shuo passed, the people of the marquis estate would lower their heads in respect. If it could be said that the people's reverence for Ouyang Shuo previously came from Gaia's intentional guidance, then now they were filled with reverence for Ouyang Shuo, the marquis, from the bottom of their hearts. Among the temples in Shanghai City, the Yellow Emperor Shrine, the Confucian Temple, the Martial Temple, and the Mazu Temple required Ouyang Shuo to personally participate in the worship. Temples such as the City God Temple and the Earth God Temple were worshipped by the Mountain Sea Prefecture. As the main place of worship, the Temple of the Yellow Emperor was the most important part of all sacrificial activities. Ouyang Shuo had specially invited Jiang Shang, who was a person of virtue and prestige, to act as the libation to preside over this grand sacrificial ceremony. All civil and military officials with a certain status in the territory would participate in this sacrificial ceremony. Early in the morning, the ministers lined up in the square in front of the Yellow Emperor Shrine. The civil officials were on the left and the generals on the right. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Ouyang Shuo appeared on time. The guards who accompanied him shouted, "The Marquis has arrived. Greetings, Marquis." In an instant, hundreds of officials knelt to greet him. Surrounded by his guards, Ouyang Shuo passed through the crowd of civil and military officials. When he arrived at the temporarily built high platform, Ouyang Shua slowly turned around and faced the civil and military officials. "Everyone, please rise." "Thank you, Marquis." The officials stood up. When they saw the Marquis on the high platform, their eyes narrowed. The Marquis, who was wearing a crown, had an awe-inspiring aura. Fan Zhongyan, who was below the platform, sighed with emotion. He was an old minister of the territory and had witnessed the growth of the Marquis. A year had passed, and the young man had completed his transformation. He had truly become the lord of Lian province. Fan Zhongyan felt gratified. A more mature and powerful Marquis was obviously in line with the expectations of everyone. Even Jiang Shang, who was standing at the side, sighed with emotion as he looked at Ouyang Shua on the high platform. The young Marquis's growth was completely beyond his imagination. Jiang Shang sighed and wondered if he was really old. Zhao Qua, who was below the platform, also had a complicated expression on his face. He had accepted the Marquis's appointment and was about to take up the position of Deputy Director and Chief of Operations of the military administration. He would become the second most important person in the military administration. His position was even higher than Gu Hongliang, the Chief of Operations. For the first time, Zhao Kuo was full of confidence about the future. "Father, just wait and see. I will make a name for myself in Shanghai City and complete my transformation." Zhao Kuo thought to himself. For a moment, the officials below the platform had different thoughts. At this moment, a system notification sounded in Ouyang Shua's ears. System notification. "Congratulations to player not saying that you have nothing to wear. After tempering, you have finally developed the aura of a Marquis. Due to this, the loyalty of all talents in the territory will increase by 10 points. Ouyang Shua looked at the civil and military officials below, but his heart was calm. He only hoped that this was a new beginning. Next was the grand sacrificial ceremony. After the sacrificial ceremony, it was already noon. After a short rest at noon, Ouyang Shua had to meet two groups of important guests in the afternoon. The first group was the chiefs of the mountain barbarian tribes. There were a total of 24 mountain barbarian tribes in Lian province, with a total population of 70 to 80,000. Tribes of various sizes were scattered across the vast land of Lian province. They were an important part of the people of Lian province. As soon as the new year was over, the chiefs of the various tribes came to see the Marquis with gifts. The meeting place was arranged in the main hall, and the chief of the administrative office, Fan Zhongyan, accompanied them. Of course, the chiefs did not come to Shanghai City just to give gifts. They had other requests. Apart from the first batch of mountain barbarian settlements in the eastern suburbs, the other mountain barbarian tribes had missed the second rice planting season last year when they moved to Lian Province Basin. The lack of food was a common problem for all the tribes. Before this, Ouyang Shua had promised to lend food to the tribes from the granary of his territory to help them tide over this difficult time. After the first rice harvest of the next year, the tribes would return the food to the granary in unison. Therefore, since the beginning of the year, under the guidance of the local Department of Agriculture, the mountain barbarian tribes had reclaimed farmland and built irrigation works to prepare for the next year's farming. The area along the Friendship River and Xiushui River had abundant water and fertile soil. Almost all the wasteland along the river had been reclaimed as farmland. In just one winter, Lian Province County had gained millions of acres of fertile farmland. Due to the rapid increase in population, the population of Lian Province alone had increased by 50 to 60,000. Needless to say, after taking over the grassland, there would be a large number of herdsmen waiting to be fed by the territory. Wasn't the reason why the allied forces of the grassland attacked Shanghai City because of the lack of food? Now that they had taken over the grassland, the burden naturally fell on the Marquis' mansion of Lian Province. The territory also lacked food. Every month, the Department of Finance had to purchase large amounts of food through the major chambers of commerce. Later, the Department of Finance simply allowed the major chambers of commerce to open rice shops and sell rice to the people. In this way, it saved the Department of Finance from having to go through the middleman. Some chambers of commerce even went deep into the grassland with carts of rice to do business. The merchants used rice to exchange for the herdsmen's furs and livestock. For this reason, the Department of Commerce had to urgently formulate a series of policies to restrain the commercial activities of the chambers of commerce. If the chambers of commerce were not restrained, who knew what kind of shocking things these chambers of commerce would do based on their innate nature of pursuing profit? Because of the food, Ouyang Shua specially summoned the Director of Agriculture, Sun Yanong. He gave Sun Yanong a strict order. The Department of Agriculture had to ensure that the territory could achieve self-sufficiency in food in the second half of the second year of Gaia. There was no need to purchase food from the market to fill the gap. For this, the Department of Finance had specially prepared a financial allocation of 10,000 gold coins. It was used to build irrigation works, purchase farming tools, train cattle, build water wheels, and other measures in the territory. Ouyang Shua did not withhold a single gold coin from the territory's January financial income. The mountain barbarian tribe leaders eagerly rushed to the Marquis's mansion to have an audience. Naturally, they hoped that the Department of Agriculture would favor the mountain barbarians in terms of industrial support. After all, compared to the refugees, the mountain barbarians were growing rice for the first time. They were not acclimatized. Ouyang Shua gave a positive response to the tribe leader's request. He promised that the Department of Agriculture would give priority to the mountain barbarians' needs for the seeds, farming tools, and cattle needed for the spring sowing. The tribe leaders were happy to receive the Marquis promise. "Thank you, Marquis." Ouyang Shua nodded, but his expression did not change. He took the opportunity to make a small request. "Everyone, this Marquis has a suggestion. I hope everyone can carefully consider it when you go back." "Marquis, please speak." The tribe leaders who had just received benefits responded in a friendly manner. There was a saying that went, "You are short of what you get." To be honest, if the tribes want to truly integrate into the Lien state system, they need to keep up with the times. The tribal system has its advantages and historical reasons. I will not comment on it. But when it comes to the Lien state, it seems more and more out of place. Ouyang Shua's words were earth-shattering. The tribe leaders' hearts trembled. Was the Marquis going to make an example out of them? Looking at the dignified Marquis who sat at the head of the table, the tribe leaders found it difficult to breathe. Ouyang Shua smiled, as if he could see through the tribe leaders' minds. He said, "Everyone, don't worry. The Mountain Barbarians' autonomy policy is my promise. I will not change it." Phew! The tribe leaders let out a long sigh of relief. As long as they still insisted on the mountain barbarians' autonomy and didn't cross this bottom line, there was still room for discussion. Ouyang Shua naturally wouldn't be so reckless. He continued, "What I mean is to separate the tribe leaders and village leaders in the settlements. We don't want them to be the same. Except for Gushan County, the tribe leader was the village leader in the mountain barbarian settlements. Fan Zhongyan once complained that the mountain barbarian system was too easy to form groups. Whether it was the tax officers of the Finance Bureau or the household registration officers of the Department of Household Registration, they would more or less encounter obstacles if they wanted to investigate the mountain barbarian settlements in detail. They would either conceal the population or the land area. The root cause was that the mountain barbarian tribes had a strong racial concept. Often, the interests of the tribe were more important than the interests of the territory. When the two couldn't be reconciled, a contradiction would appear. Fan Zhongyan once proposed to Ouyang Shua to implement administrative reform in the mountain barbarian settlements. Ouyang Shua had always put this proposal on hold. Ouyang Shua was too clear about the obstacles and difficulties he would encounter in this. Undoubtedly, he needed an opportunity. Now, it was a good opportunity. The mountain barbarian tribes needed the territory. In addition, Ouyang Shua's prestige was growing day by day. The tribe leaders also felt fear in their hearts. What's more, Ouyang Shua agreed to their conditions first, giving the tribe leaders a way out. At least, the tribes weren't forced to agree under the pressure of the Marquis's mansion. At least, the Marquis was still asking for their opinions. And this was just a small proposal. As expected, after listening to Ouyang Shua's proposal, the tribe leaders were silent. They were all elites of the tribes. They naturally understood the meaning behind the Marquis's words. After a long time, a tribe leader, as the representative, stood up and replied, "We still need to go back to the tribe and ask the great shaman about the Marquis's proposal. I believe that he will definitely give the Marquis a satisfactory answer." Ouyang Shuo nodded. "If that's the case, I can rest assured." Fan Zhongyan sat at the side. Seeing the Marquis toying with the tribe leaders in the palm of his hand, his expression was indescribable. The Marquis now was not only dignified, but he could also easily play all kinds of political tricks. And this was also a necessary lesson for a qualified leader to master. To be continued. Chapter 354. After sending off the mountain barbarian tribe's various chiefs, Ouyang Shuo prepared to receive the second group of guests. This group of guests had even more special identities. They were the leaders of the tribes of the grassland. Apart from the Sky Order tribe's Khan Mengku, who did not come in person due to health issues, the leaders of the other 7 medium-sized tribes were all present. On the eve of the Spring Festival, the leaders of the various clans were invited to Shanghai City by the 2nd Division. After Ouyang Shuo returned to Shanghai City, he didn't have the time to rest. "Greetings, Marquis." Walking into the main hall, the leaders bowed in unison. It was a historic moment. The leaders kneeling represented that the grassland tribes had officially submitted to Shanghai City. Ouyang Shuo sat upright on the seat of honor and calmly accepted the greeting. Then he indifferently said, "Everyone, please sit." "Yes, sir." The leaders sat down obediently, their expressions uneasy. Among them, the one representing the Sky Boundary tribe was Meng Ku's eldest son, Jida, who was also close to 30 years old. Unlike the other leaders, this person had an arrogant expression on his face as he sat boldly on the first seat on the left. Ouyang Shuo frowned imperceptibly when he saw this. Among the leaders, there were some who were meticulous and were already gloating in their hearts. Jida was really reckless. At this time, he was still putting on airs as the #1 tribe of the prairie. Compared to the amiable expression he had when he received the mountain barbarian tribes, Ouyang Shuo's current expression was a little cold as he said, "Before everyone surrendered, there was a leader called Dari Achi on the prairie who led his troops to surrender." As soon as he finished speaking, the leaders' hearts trembled. During the Battle of Lianzhou, the news that Dari Achi had attempted to collude with the Allied forces, but because of his careless plotting, he was thrown into prison by Shanghai City, had long since spread throughout the prairie. The reason why the Marquis of Lianzhou suddenly mentioned this matter was obvious. Sure enough, Ouyang Shuo's face was filled with anger as he sternly said, "Shanghai City has never treated Dari Achi unfairly. Who would have thought that this person actually had the ambition of a wolf and wanted to rebel? This Marquis will never tolerate such an ingrate." The punishment commissioner has already come to a conclusion. In the next few days, Dari Achi will be beheaded on the street to face the truth. The leaders' faces were pale as they said shakily, "The Marquis is wise." His feelings were really complicated. "I won't hide it from you. There was once a minister who advised this Marquis that Dari Achi is the role model of the prairie, that this kind of person can only be one but not two. We should deal with the tribes of the grassland with thunderous methods and eliminate them by the roots to serve as a warning to others." Ouyang Shuo's expression was calm, but the words that came out of his mouth were like a raging ocean. What do you all think? Ouyang Shuo's words were not entirely a bluff. The minister he mentioned was Tian Wenjing, the head of the Internal Affairs Department. Dari Achi's case was single-handedly handled by the Ministry of Internal Affairs. After Tian Wenjing reported the case to Ouyang Shuo, he took the opportunity to propose the extermination of the various clan leaders. At that time, Ouyang Shuo's non-committal attitude was equivalent to shelving Tian Wenjing's suggestion. Compared to slaughter, Ouyang Shuo was more inclined to adopt a relatively gentle method to solve the problems left behind after the tribes of the grasslands submitted to him. He did not want to capture all the nobles in one fell swoop. After all, Dari Achi was just an exception. Now that the grasslands were unified, even if they wanted to rebel, they had no conditions. Most importantly, If Ouyang Shuo wanted to win the hearts of the people in the prairie, he had to treat these nobles well. Otherwise, there would be endless troubles in the future. Ouyang Shuo did not want to see a prairie that was in constant chaos under his rule. Unifying the Lianzhou Basin and operating Lianzhou County like an iron bucket was Ouyang Shuo's strategic choice. Taking 10,000 steps back, if he really massacred the nobles of the grassland, not only would it disappoint the grassland herdsmen, but it would also disappoint the mountain barbarian tribes. It was not a joke to say that the fox grieves when the rabbit dies. The leaders looked at each other, their faces turning paler and paler. Seeing that the situation was becoming more and more unfavorable, the leaders did not want to sit still and wait for death. One by one, they stood up to declare their loyalty and whitewash their names. Each and every one of them spoke with sincerity. Marquis, Marquis, one of the leaders directly fell to the ground. His voice sounded like he was about to cry. The dignity and self-respect of a clan leader were nowhere to be seen. Marquis, Dariachi's death is not to be regretted, but he cannot represent the tribes of the grassland. We sincerely submit to you, Marquis, and we have no other intentions. Please investigate this, Marquis. Please investigate this, Marquis. Marquis, please investigate this, Marquis. Among the people, only Jida did not plead for mercy. His eyes even revealed a hint of disdain towards the leader's behavior, and his nostrils emitted a disdainful snort. Jida's words and actions were like a crane in a flock of chickens. It was impossible for him not to attract attention. Young Master Jida, you seem to have a different opinion? Ouyang Shuo's expression was indifferent, but his words hid a hidden meaning. Hearing this, Jida said carelessly, "Since ancient times, the winner takes all. Dariachi deserved to die, but there is no need to implicate us. There are no cowards in the Tianjin tribe." Ouyang Shuo's eyes lit up. Jida's words were soft but firm. Not only did he express his position, but he also maintained the pride and dignity of the royal family. It was a short sentence, but it was said with great skill. Ouyang Shuo had to reevaluate this person. Perhaps cynicism was only a coat that Jida used to protect himself. Menka had raised a good son. Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, "Good, well said." He looked around, and his voice was slow but full of power. As the ruler of the human world, as the ruler, I have responsibility for the territory, so I naturally have the magnanimity of a ruler and understand the way of forgiveness. But if there are people who are stubborn, in order to maintain the order of the territory, I will not hesitate to show my thunderous fury and drown all of you in a sea of blood. Majesty, majesty, and killing intent that towered like a mountain filled the entire hall. It was an irresistible and solemn aura. All the chiefs knelt at the same time. Even the cynical Jida also knelt at this moment. All the chiefs prostrated themselves, and no one dared to make sound. The hall was deathly silent. Looking at those trembling figures, Ouyang Shuo sighed inwardly. The people prostrating in front of him were the top figures of the prairie, and they represented the peak strength of the prairie. But now, they were all prostrating at his feet, not daring to breathe loudly. This was where the power of authority lay. No wonder since ancient times, countless heroes would go through water and tread on fire for this. That afternoon, Ouyang Shuo made a promise. He would allow the chiefs and nobles of the prairie to bring their personal wealth and move to Shanghai City to settle down. Shanghai City would demarcate an area in the outer city and build an exclusive neighborhood for them to live in. On normal days, the nobles were not allowed to leave the neighborhood, and they were not allowed to contact their clansmen. Once they were found out, they would be severely punished. Other than that, the punishment system would also be implemented. If one person was investigated, the entire tribe's nobles would be punished. A light punishment would be confiscation of their assets, and a heavy punishment would be forced into labor. If they had any rebellious thoughts, their entire clan would be annihilated. Under the carrot and stick policy, the prairie tribes could only prostrate themselves at Ouyang Shuo's feet. February 22nd, the second day of the first lunar month. On this day, Ouyang Shua put aside all his affairs and met with the prefectures and city guards in his study room. For prefectures and a city guard reported to Ouyang Shua in turn. Ouyang Shua received them one by one, pointing out the plans and requirements for each prefecture and city. The main target was none other than Duanren Prefecture's prefectural magistrate, Zhou Haichun. Although Ba Dao was militaristic, he had left behind a territory with a solid foundation. According to Zhou Haichun's report, Duanren County's total population was more than 210,000, equivalent to 2 fully populated third-class counties. In one fell swoop, Duanren Prefecture became the most populous territory after Shanghai Prefecture. Even the Mulan Mansion paled in comparison. With such a large population, if they relied on Shanghai City to accumulate resources, who knew how long it would take? Duanren Prefecture was also the most successful example of Ouyang Shua's gu-raising plan. Other than that, Duanren Prefecture's greatest wealth was the gold mine that Ba Dao discovered. Similar to the Wolf Mountain Mine, the gold mine that Ba Dao named as the North Mountain Mine contained an astonishing amount of gold. What Ba Dao mined was just a drop in the ocean. Ouyang Shua immediately promised that the North Mountain Mine would be placed under Duanren Prefecture's direct jurisdiction. He also hoped to improve Duanren Prefecture's financial situation through the North Mountain Mine. During Ba Dao's reign, more than 90% of the territory's revenue was used to develop military equipment. The expenditure on people's livelihood and public finances was almost zero. Duanren Prefecture urgently needed to recover its strength. Of course, although the North Mountain Mine was placed under Duanren Prefecture's jurisdiction, the Marquis Mansion did not really ignore it. In addition to the stipulated ratio, the funds had to be turned over to the Finance Bureau in the form of fiscal revenue. Ouyang Shua also instructed the Wolf Mountain Mine to dispatch experts and skilled personnel to guide the Northern Mountain Mine and improve their mining and refining standards in order to increase their gold production. In the end, Ouyang Shua raised 3 requests for Zhou Haichun. First, Duanren Manor must immediately establish the East Law Lake Naval Battalion to clear out the water bandits and create conditions for the development of the East Law Lake. Whether it was fishing or artificially cultivating pearls, they had to be done as soon as possible. Secondly, all the counties and counties under Duanren Manor, especially the secondary counties, must be removed and the population concentrated in the main city, focusing on developing the main city. Third, the construction of Duanren City's outer walls had to be carried out in a timely manner. They had to strive to complete the city walls before the spring sowing. If it couldn't be built, it would have to be temporarily shelved. After the spring sowing, they would continue to build. Apart from that, Ouyang Shua had also ordered the military to be in charge of establishing Duanren City's City Guard Brigade. Compared to Gushan County, Duanren City was closer to the 100,000 mountains. In the future, Duanren City would be the front line defending against Chiyu City. After the debriefing, the magistrates set off for the administrative center the next day. Spring was the start of the year. As magistrates, they really did not have much free time. Even Chui Shaoxi, after a brief meeting with his cousin, Chui Yingyu, had no choice but to return immediately. Before Zhou Haichun left, Ouyang Shua gave him a token. It was the village creation token that Ouyang Shua had fused with the fusion token. This token would be used to reactivate Duanren City. After giving away this token, Ouyang Shua still had 3 similar tokens in his interspatial pouch. To be continued. Chapter 355. Gaia's second year, February 23rd. January 3rd. On the 3rd day of the new year, Ouyang Shua's schedule was still packed to the brim. In the morning, Ouyang Shua summoned Fan Zhongyan, the 3 division heads, and Yongye County Magistrate Shen Jue. In order to strengthen their rule over the grasslands, they had to build cities in the grasslands. It just so happened that the original Friendship County's 3 second-class subsidiary territories had not been used yet. Ouyang Shua's intention was to build Blessed City next to the Blessed Lake at the base camp of the Sky's Boundary tribe. Then, on the east and west sides of the prairie, he built a citadel each. With the 3 cities as the foundation, he would establish the Blessed Ones. In the future, The Blessed Prefecture would be the prefecture with the largest area among all the prefectures in Lianzhou County. The magistrate that Ouyang Shuo was interested in was Shen Jue. Ouyang Shuo had always thought highly of Shen Jue. Not only did he have experience in the Resource Reserve Department, he had also served as a county magistrate. Whether it was experience or ability, he was more than qualified to be the prefect of the Blessed Prefecture. Unlike the other manors, the Blessed God's Manor was practically destitute and had to start from scratch. In the morning, Ouyang Shuo and the 3 division heads came up with a 4-point plan for the development of the Blessed Abode. First, move the herdsmen of the various tribes to settle down in the 3 cities. On the grassland, including the sky-abundant tribe that had surrendered, there was a total of 1 large tribe and 8 medium-sized tribes. Their total population was less than 130,000 people. After the Battle of Lianzhou, excluding the dead soldiers and the reorganized cavalry, the actual population of the grassland was less than 100,000. Blessed Providence had a vast territory but a small population, so animal husbandry was its lifeline. Gathering the herdsmen in the city was to put an end to the scattered and extensive grazing of the herdsmen. Instead, they would build large-scale pastures and farms for collective grazing. The second was to build city walls. In the future, the Blessed Abode of Gods would be a place where the tribes of the plains and the Han people would live together. The prerequisite for building a city was to build a sturdy city wall. Only in this way could the advanced farming culture of the Han people be integrated into the nomadic culture of the grassland. There is neither wood nor stone on the grassland, which was a major test for the construction of the city wall. Fortunately, there was no shortage of red soil on the grassland, so there were enough conditions to build a large brick kiln. The walls of the 1 city and 2 counties in the Blessed Abode of Gods would be mainly made of earth, with a layer of green bricks on the outside. The buildings in the city were also mainly made of bricks, but at the same time, they also took into account the characteristics of the grassland tribes. He could consider delineating an area in the city to allow herdsmen to build yurts. The convergence of the 2 civilizations was also a major feature of the future Blessed Abode. At the same time, it was a huge test for prefectural magistrate Shen Jie. Ouyang Shuo even proposed to openly select people with both ability and integrity from the various clans of the prairie to assume important positions in the soon-to-be-established provincial and county governments. Even the nobles who were about to move to Shanghai City would be placed in an important position as long as they had outstanding abilities. The operation of the Blessed Abode was inseparable from the support of the grassland tribes. This task required Shen Jue to coordinate with the Administrative Bureau and the Home Affairs Bureau. Of course, the selected officials had to go to Southwest University China Hall for 3 months or even half a year of advanced studies. Only after successfully graduating would one be able to obtain employment. Thirdly, develop the deep processing industry on the grassland. Animal husbandry was the foundation of the grassland, but it was not enough to support the economy of the Blessed Abode. With the end of the battle in Lian Province, all the major chambers of commerce had set their sights on the vast prairie. The furs and livestock that the herdsmen had painstakingly saved up were bought by the merchants at a low price. Ouyang Shuo, who possessed outstanding foresight, naturally wouldn't allow the grassland to grow wildly. Deep processing was the opportunity and way out for the grasslands to rise. Whether it was wool, leather, milk, or goat's milk, they all had to be deep processed on the spot. The wool could be woven into blankets, and the leather could be made into leather boots or clothes. Even goat's milk and horse's milk could be made into milk skins, cheese, and other dairy products. Fourthly, protect the ecology of the grassland and maintain the growth environment of the cyan beetle horses. In the future, the Blessed Abode's greatest contribution to the territory would be to provide an endless supply of cyan beetle horses. Ouyang Shuo had already raised the cultivation of cyan beetle horses to the strategic level of the territory. What Shen Jie wanted to do was to gather the cyan beetle horses from the various clans and build a large military horse farm near the beautiful Blessed Lake. The military horse farm at the Blessed Lake would surpass the Storm Valley military horse farm and become the largest military horse farm in the territory. To maintain the population of cyan beetle horses and protect the ecology of the grassland, it was imperative. All the development and construction of the blessed abode must not destroy the ecology of the grassland. After deciding on the general direction of the blessed abode, Ouyang Shuo no longer interfered with the allocation of manpower, resources, and funds. Shun Jie needed to personally coordinate with the Administrative Bureau, Home Affairs Bureau, and Finance Bureau. Before Shun Jue left, Ouyang Shuo gave him 3 black iron village creation tokens. The 3 badges had not been forged using the fusion badges. They were extracted directly from the steel in the Friendship City. At this point, the 9 Shanghai City Village creation tokens of the Grade 2 subsidiary territories had all been separated. The 3 from Beihai City were used in Tianfeng City, Yishui County, and Duanan City. The one from Friendship City was used to build the Blessed Abode. The 3 from Xiaoshui City were still in Ouyang Shuo's storage pouch. By the time he finished dealing with the matters of the Blessed Abode, it was already noon. Ouyang Shuo left the study and returned to the rear hall to eat. "Big brother, you're back." Binger was already waiting in the dining hall for lunch. After the little girl practiced the Pure Heart Sutra, no other changes could be seen, but her appetite did increase. Ouyang Shuo knew nothing about the Pure Heart Sutra. All he could do was wait and see. According to Zissou, other than 3 meals a day, Binger would often eat pastries. Sometimes, she would complain about being hungry even before it was time to eat. But the little girl was stubborn and would always wait for Ouyang Shuo to return before eating together. Ouyang Shuo had no choice but to get off work on time every day. After lunch, Ouyang Shuo returned to his room to rest. In the afternoon, there was an important political meeting waiting for him to preside over. Ouyang Shuo had to conserve his energy. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the main hall. 3 bureaus, 12 departments, a total of 15 officials were all present. Ouyang Shuo sat at the head of the table and presided over the first political meeting of the Marquis' mansion. At some point, the word political meeting had become a thing of the past and was replaced by the word political meeting. It was only a difference of 1 word, but the meaning was completely different. The word political in the political meeting represented the formalization of the territory's civil officials. Their speaking power and status had increased, and they had truly become the other pole of the 2 poles of the military and the political. At the same time, it also announced that Ouyang Shuo's authority was growing day by day. The word political meeting divided Ouyang Shuo, the Lord, and the territory's civil officials into 2 different levels. Ouyang Shuo occupied 1 level. Below him was the civil officials. Compared to the territory's previous meetings, there were 2 obvious changes in the political meeting. First, the number of affairs that needed to be coordinated with each other gradually increased. As the territory expanded, some of the territory's affairs could no longer be solved by a single department or even a single bureau. For example, the matter of building the road network in Lianzhou County that was currently being discussed involved at least 3 main departments: the construction department, the audit department, and the Bank of the 4 Seas. The construction department was responsible for the road planning and design. The audit department was responsible for the audit of the project budget, and the Bank of the 4 Seas was responsible for the allocation of funds and financial transfer payments. Other than the 3 main departments, the other departments were also more or less involved. For example, the establishment of courier stations along the official road involved the Department of Culture and Education and the Department of Public Order. Other than that, the government offices and county offices along the official road were also all involved. Not to mention, there were hundreds of settlements along the road. It was not a simple math problem to decide which settlement the road would pass through and which settlement it would not pass through. The complexity of the affairs involved was not something that could be imagined during the period of the county. While this was a test for the departments, it was also a huge test for the 3 bureau chiefs. Fortunately, whether it was Fan Zhongyin or Tian Wenjing, they were all bigwigs, so they could handle it with ease. It was precisely because of the complexity of the affairs that the interests involved were intertwined. During the political discussion, Ouyang Shuo was a listener most of the time and would not easily express his opinion. And this was the second change in the political discussion. Ouyang Shua gradually completed the change of role. He began to change from a participant to a pure decision-maker. Unless it involved the territory's major strategy, under normal circumstances, Ouyang Shua would let the departments come up with a solution or a clear plan and would not take the initiative to guide the work of the departments. In this way, the authority of the three bureau chiefs was greatly increased. Their roles were also going through a change. In the previous discussions, Ouyang Shua usually played the leading role. Whether it was Fan Zhongyan or Cui Yingyu, they played the role of executor. Fan Zhongyan and Tian Wenjing's radiance was completely covered by Ouyang Shua's huge figure, and their sense of existence was extremely low. Now, they could be considered the real giants, and they had great decision-making power. For Fan Zhongyan and Tian Wenjing, the stage for them to display their talents had just begun. In the future, when the two of them led the bureau on this stage, what kind of dazzling brilliance would they produce? Everything could only be left to be tested by time. As for the bureau chiefs of the various departments, their days were somewhat difficult. Power and responsibility had always coexisted. At the same time that Ouyang Shua gave the various departments more power, the various departments naturally had to bear greater responsibility. If the bureau chiefs made a mistake in decision-making and caused damage to the territory's interests, they would naturally have to be held accountable. If it was light, they would be demoted in the year-end evaluation. If it was heavy, they would have to change their positions. Among the 12 bureau chiefs, there were 3 or 4 whose positions were not very stable. They had a common characteristic, and that was that they had all risen from the wilderness. Coupled with their limited qualifications, they were naturally tested. The current bureau chief Du Quan, the tax bureau chief Qian Li Fei, and the industry bureau chief Du Xiaolan, these 3's positions were the most unstable. When the time was right, Ouyang Shua would send them to the prefectural government. As for the bureau chief Qin Shijian, the bureau chief of agriculture Sun Yanong, and the bureau chief of construction Hao Jiansheng, these 3 were still in the observation stage. The other 6 bureau chiefs, whether it was in terms of ability or experience, were relatively outstanding, so there was no need to worry for the time being. To be continued. Chapter 356. P.S. Sheng Xiao is really sorry for the unstable update time recently. Sincerely. February 24th, the 4th day of the first month. It wasn't an easy day for Ouyang Shua. He had just finished the political meeting yesterday afternoon, and there was a military meeting this morning. The meeting was also held in the main hall. Compared to the civil officials group, the generals group was much brighter. Du Ruhui led the military department, followed by Zhao Kuo, Gu Hongliang, and Song San. The field army was led by Bai Qi, and the 4 division commanders of the 4 divisions were all present. Other than that, there was also Sun Bin, Fan Lihua, Dai Qin, Lin Yi, and Wang Feng, who had teleported over from Cliff Mountain City. There was only one person in the hall who felt the most uneasy. He was the director of the Military Intelligence Department, Song San. If Gu Hongliang was said to have some foundation and confidence in sitting behind Du Ruhui, then Song San, who was born as a hooligan, would have an inferiority complex in front of these legendary generals. The intelligence department was an important department in the military. Song San felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. If he could, Song San wanted to ask Marquis to step down as the director of the intelligence department and return to the field army. With his experience, he could at least become a brigade commander, and it wouldn't be as easy as the director of the intelligence department. Song San aside, even Lin Yi and Wang Feng, the 2 young warriors with the most potential in the city, had a serious expression on their faces, their eyes fixed on the scene. Lin Yi had been in many battles in the past year, and he was on the verge of breaking through to become an advanced general. If nothing went wrong, he would become the first local general to be promoted to a high-level general, and he would break the territory's record. As for Wang Feng and Zhao Sihu, there was still a long way to go before they could become advanced generals. It was even more difficult for the other generals. Some of them couldn't even see any hope of breaking through. That was how difficult it was to become an advanced general. In his previous life, due to the lack of high-ranking generals, some territories did not even have a main SEAL commander in their divisions. Either the feudal lord personally took up the post, or the deputy division commander acted as the division commander. It was the same situation as the deputy division commander of the city guards, Zhao Sihu. As a city guard general, Zhao Sihu didn't have the right to participate in this meeting. It was the first time for Zhao Kuo, Sun Bin, Fan Lihua, and Dai Qin to participate in a military conference. Thus, Ouyang Shuo had intentionally arrived half an hour late before the meeting. He wanted to leave some time for the generals to familiarize themselves with each other. Among the four of them, Zhao Kuo could be considered half an acquaintance. During the Battle of Chongping, the generals of Shanghai City had met with Zhao Kuo's troops many times. At that time, he was a high-spirited young commander. But now, he was willing to work for the military office. The vicissitudes of the world were truly difficult for mortals to fathom. Among all the generals, the one who was most familiar with Zhao Kuo was Bai Qi. Although the two of them were familiar with each other, they were definitely not friends. Their meeting was as awkward as it could be. Of course, this was only Zhao Kuo's opinion. For Bai Qi, be it on the battlefield map or the main map, Zhao Kuo was just a young general with potential. He was far from being a match for him. Bai Qi felt that the Marquis's decision to place Zhao Kuo in the War Department was a stroke of genius. With Zhao Kuo's ability, the War Department was the most suitable stage for him to display his talents. As for the previous mutual restraints between him and the military office, Bai Qi had always been clear-headed. As long as the Marquis trusted him, all the methods and arrangements he made would be beyond criticism. The only thing that chilled the general's heart was the Lord's suspicion and distrust. The restraints actually proved the Marquis's trust in him. Although Bai Qi was not familiar with Sun Bin, he was definitely a famous person. Among the generals, apart from Wu Lai, Sun Bin was born in the oldest era. More importantly, as a famous general who had not studied Sun Bin's art of war. The circular formation that Zhao Kuo set up in the Battle of Chongping was created by Sun Bin. Whether it was Bai Qi, Shi Wansui, or the others, they all held Sun Bin in high esteem. Therefore, Sun Bin, the young man in the wheelchair, had already established his prestige among the generals after joining Shanghai City, although he had not made any contributions yet. As for his prestige in the army, it could only be tested in a real battle. With such a reputation, most of the generals in the hall came to talk to Sun Bin. From Bai Qi to Luo Shixin, everyone came to talk to him. As for Sun Bin himself, his heart tightened when he saw the generals in the hall. At this moment, he finally realized that his grandfather's warning from before was not false. At the same time, Sun Bin felt a surge of hot blood in his heart. He thought about it. With so many famous generals, Sun Bin's dream was more likely to come true. His grandfather was right. Shanghai City was indeed the best choice for him to become an official. Although it was Sun Bin's first time attending a military meeting, he was not ignorant about the army of Shanghai City. Since their first meeting, Ouyang Shuo had taken some time to have a deep conversation with Sun Bin. No one else knew the specific content of their conversation. The key point was related to today's military meeting. When they first talked, Sun Bin was still not confident. Now that he had seen the famous generals in the hall, Sun Bin was even more certain. Commanding an army of thousands was right in front of him. Fan Lihua, the only female general among the four of them, felt a little awkward. A few days were enough for Fan Lihua to sort out the relationship between her young master and the Marquis of Lianzhou. Therefore, Fan Lihua consciously integrated herself into the system of Shanghai City. Of course, in her heart, Fan Lihua still felt a little closer to Ouyang Bing, this little lord. Binger was born to be a diplomat. No one who came into contact with her did not like her. During the Spring Festival, apart from playing by herself, Binger's main task was to bring her sister around Shanghai City. This gave Fan Lihua a direct understanding of the prosperity of Shanghai City. Of course, as the former Grand Marshal of the Armed Forces, Fan Lihua had seen the world. Although Shanghai City was prosperous, it was still a far cry from Tangchong and City. She did not have stage fright when she called out to Fan Lihua, but she was not familiar with others, so she was a little taciturn. Fortunately, there was another person among the generals who was as famous as Fan Lihua. She was Mu Guiying, one of the 4 heroines of China. According to the legend, the two of them should be senior and junior sisters. Seeing that Fan Lihua was silent, as a veteran general of the territory, Mu Guiying considerately took the initiative to look for Fan Lihua. The 2 golden flowers in the army of Shanghai City could be considered to know each other. Between the 2 of them, there were too many similarities. Both of them were daughters-in-law of famed generals. Both of them had captured their husbands, and both of them became widows and went to war on behalf of their husbands. Both of them had made a name for themselves and returned victorious. Since they had the same experience, they naturally appreciated each other. The 2 of them felt like old friends at first sight. Although it was their first meeting, they were already like sisters. What kind of dazzling brilliance would the 2 golden flowers bloom in the future? It was really exciting. If Fan Lihua was only a little embarrassed, Dai Qin, the last of the 4, was a little uneasy like Song San. It was only at this moment, sitting in the main hall, that Dai Qin had a comprehensive understanding of the army of Shanghai City. Dai Qin felt a little ashamed when he recalled how confident he was when he first mobilized the army. Obviously, the army of Shanghai City had never treated the allied army of the grasslands as an equal opponent. What Shanghai City was guarding against was the allied army of the Yanhuang Alliance. To think that Dai Qin did not know that he was shrewd and calculative. Now that he thought about it, it was such a joke. Dai Qin had stayed in Shanghai City for a period of time. He had also heard about the Marquis series of arrangements for the grasslands. To be honest, Dai Qin, as the commander of the Allied army, was directly responsible for the grassland's current state. However, deep down, Dai Qin did not think that it was a bad thing for the grasslands to submit to Shanghai City. If he said it was a bad thing, it was only for the nobles. To the ordinary herdsman, it was a blessing. After witnessing the prosperity of Shanghai City and the agricultural civilization, Dai Qin finally realized how backward the living standards of the tribes in the prairie were. Dai Qin's thoughts did not mean that the herdsmen would let him go. To the herdsmen, they only believed what they saw with their own eyes. The truth was that they had once trusted Dai Qin and sent their sons and husbands to the army. But what they got back was either a cold corpse or an empty sack. Dai Qin had also heard that there were some unfavorable rumors about him in the grasslands. There were all kinds of rumors. Some said that Dai Qin did not live up to his reputation, that he did not fight well, and that he was a sinner of the grasslands. Some said that Dai Qin was vain, that he defected to the enemy, and that he was not worthy of the title of Black Tiger of the grasslands. Ever since he surrendered, Dai Qin had not seen Khan Monkey once. Perhaps not seeing him was the best choice. Dai Qin could not imagine what it would be like to meet the Khan. Although Dai Qin had a clear conscience, he could not withstand the slander of the rumors. All in all, the grasslands had become a knot in Dai Qin's heart, a knot that could not be untied. Dai Qin only wanted to be able to lead an army under the Marquis command, to fight in the outer realm, and to leave this sad place. In fact, Ouyang Shua admired Dai Qin very much. Ever since they had returned to Shanghai City, both Bai Qi and Du Ruhui had spoken highly of Dai Qin, saying that he was a great general that was hard to come by. Among the local generals, no one could compare to him. Even Rakshasa, one of the 3 great generals of the Tianjian tribe, was far inferior to Dai Qin. Because of his hatred for Ouyang Shua, Rakshasa did not choose to surrender after the Allied army surrendered. Instead, he used the opportunity of reorganizing the surrendered army to retire. For Rakshasa, it was better to be an ordinary herdsman for the rest of his life. Everyone had their own ambitions. Ouyang Shua did not ask Rakshasa to stay. He also did not do anything to Rakshasa. After all, half of Rakshasa's tragedy was caused by him. In the clamor, Ouyang Shua finally appeared. To be continued. Chapter 357. When Ouyang Shua arrived at the main hall, the military meeting officially began. The subject of this military meeting was very clear. It was to discuss the arrangements for the three reorganized divisions. Deciding on the candidates for the three division commanders was only one aspect. More importantly, the territory had increased the establishment of three divisions. In addition to the existing four divisions, they already had the conditions to establish a military unit that was one level higher than a division, a legion. According to the establishment, for divisions would form a legion. What was different from a division was that a legion did not have a direct subordinate force. The legion commander was only equipped with a personal guard battalion. If a division was said to be the cornerstone of an army, then a legion was a true army. It was the highest level military unit in the army apart from a group army. Moreover, according to convention, a group army was temporarily formed from several legions during wartime. Therefore, a legion was in fact the highest level military unit in the army during normal times. Often, a legion was enough to dominate a local war. Naturally, the establishment of such an important military unit had to be extremely cautious. It could even be said that the establishment of a legion was a major milestone in the territorial army. Ouyang Shua already had a draft in mind on how to establish a legion. At the beginning of the military meeting, Ouyang Shua first kept everyone in suspense and did not immediately announce the establishment of a legion. In the army, there was such a special force that was always at the highest level of the army. Its position was unshakable, and that was the personal guard directly under the Lord. The personal guard was the divine weapon that protected the country. In his previous life, a lord had described this force as, "The personal guard is the sharp sword in the Lord's hand. It spreads the Lord's prestige, defends the Lord's glory, and is the most dazzling star on the crown." "Glory is my life" was the most vivid portrayal of the personal guard. The current Praetorian Guard Brigade was one of the Imperial Guards. Not including the city defense force, the territory's field army was already close to the 100,000 mark. Such a large army, but the personal guard only had a pitiful Imperial Guard Brigade. It clearly did not match its strategic position. Therefore, the first thing Ouyang Shua needed to do was to restructure the personal guard system. The first to make a move was the Imperial Guard Brigade. Ouyang Shua ordered the Imperial Guard Brigade to be renamed the Featherwood Guard and was organized according to the 3,000 Featherwood Guards. The commander of the Featherwood Guard was specially appointed as the Featherwood General, with the same rank as the division commander. Wang Feng was the first Featherwood General. Wang Feng's appointment did not cause any ripples in the army. Since the establishment of the personal guards, the promotion of the personal guards, and the establishment of the Forbidden Brigade, Wang Feng had been playing the role of the captain of Ouyang Shua's personal guards. The position of Featherwood General, who else but Wang Feng? The Featherwood Guard, to put it bluntly, was Ouyang Shua's personal guard. Ordinarily, the Featherwood Guard was responsible for surrounding and protecting the estate. During the war, the Featherwood Guard was Ouyang Shua's personal army. Wherever Ouyang Shua went, the Featherwood Guard would follow. The establishment of the Featherwood Guard wasn't as simple as changing a name. Ouyang Shua clearly stated that all members of the Featherwood Guard must pass the special combat training. Only those who passed the test and had outstanding results could be selected. The Featherwood Guard was the Army's special forces. Currently, all members of the Imperial Guard Brigade who were eliminated in the first round of assessment were not allowed to join the Featherwood Guard. Apart from special combat training, Ouyang Shua also raised two rigid requirements for the Featherwood Guard's member selection. Firstly, the lowest standard of the Featherwood Guard's rank was a rank 10 elite soldier that had gone through hundreds of battles. Secondly, the Featherwood Guard's aptitude couldn't be lower than B grade. Otherwise, they wouldn't be accepted. Such a high threshold forged the Featherwood Guard's prestige. Ouyang Shua also imposed strict restrictions on the Featherwood Guard's establishment. For a very long time in the future, the Featherwood Guard would maintain an establishment of 3,000 people. If one wanted to join the Featherwood Guard, the only way was for the Featherwood Guard to have casualties and fill in the gaps. Ouyang Shua's goal was to make the Featherwood Guard not only equal to a division in terms of status, but also equal to a division in terms of combat strength, perhaps even surpassing it. This required each member of the Featherwood Guard to be able to fight one against 3, or even 4. A few days ago, the second batch of immigrants had already arrived in Cliff Province. The members of the Imperial Guard Brigade would follow the North Sea Fleet back to Shanghai City to receive reorganization. Their primary mission was to complete the remaining special combat training at the training base. Where would the eliminated members of the Imperial Guard Brigade be sent to? This involved the second level of the Imperial Guard Brigade that Ouyang Shua had constructed. Ouyang Shua ordered the formation of the Imperial Guard Brigade. The Imperial Guard Brigade was under Ouyang Shua's direct command. Ordinarily, it was responsible for surrounding and protecting the capital and was also Shanghai City's last and strongest line of defense. During wartime, the Imperial Guard Division was the absolute main force of the campaign map. In the future, the members of the Imperial Guard Brigade would be selected from the Imperial Guard Brigade. As for the members of the Imperial Guard Brigade, they would be selected from the various field divisions, just like the previous Imperial Guard Brigade. The selection criteria were exactly the same as the previous Imperial Guard Brigade. If the Featherwood Guard was said to be Ouyang Shua's personal guard force, then the Imperial Guard Brigade was Ouyang Shua's personal army. The two added together formed Ouyang Shua's indestructible Imperial Guard Brigade. In reality, there were still 2 levels in the Imperial Guard Brigade system that Ouyang Shua had constructed. It was just that the territory's current conditions didn't yet possess the conditions to construct these 2 levels of Imperial Guard Brigade, and there was no need for them for the time being. Only when the time was ripe could the plan be implemented. Ouyang Shua had unexpectedly chosen Lin Yi as the commander of the Imperial Guard Brigade. There was no doubt that among the divisions, the Imperial Guard Brigade was the most dazzling. Some people couldn't help but be a little puzzled that the Marquis had arranged for a young general who wasn't even a high-level general to hold such a position. As a matter of fact, Ouyang Shua had just finished speaking when the hall was already in a state of discussion. None of the generals had any objections to the Marquis's decision to construct the Imperial Guard Brigade. What they didn't understand was the choice of the commander of the Imperial Guard Brigade. It wasn't that no one was tempted by this position. Even special-class generals like Shi Wansui and Er Lai were a little tempted, especially Er Lai. But in the eyes of meticulous people like Bai Qi and Du Ruhui, it was nothing out of the ordinary. Since it was the Marquis's Imperial Guard Brigade, then whether it was the Yulin general or the commander of the Imperial Guard Brigade, they were only responsible for the day-to-day management of the army. During wartime, the Imperial Guard Brigade would be directly commanded by the Marquis. Thus, although the 2 positions seemed illustrious, they both lacked the opportunity to stand on their own. Arranging for a young general to be the commander of a division wasn't surprising at all. This way, the Marquis could strengthen his control over the Imperial Guard Brigade and take the opportunity to train young generals. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, why not? In reality, Ouyang Shua's favorite candidate was the commander of the 2nd Division, Luo Shixin. Not only was Luo Shixin brave and courageous in battle, but he also had a high character. He was the most suitable candidate. Unfortunately, the 2nd Division had already passed the division's test and was completely branded with Luo Shixin's mark. Thus, Luo Shixin couldn't easily leave the 2nd Division, otherwise all his efforts would be in vain. After weighing the pros and cons, Ouyang Shua settled for the next best choice. Receiving the appointment, Lin Yi was both excited and nervous. The speculating looks from the generals around him made him feel uneasy. Even so, Lin Yi still had to thank the Marquis for his trust. As for the doubts of his colleagues, using words to argue was the most useless way. The only way was to prove himself on the battlefield. In the army, one always spoke with their fists. After the formation of the Imperial Guard Brigade, there were, in fact, only 2 divisions left. Ouyang Shua had made arrangements for these 2 divisions. Ouyang Shua announced that the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th divisions would form the Dragon Xiang Army. Dragons were supreme beings. The Dragon Xiang Army represented the 1st Division of Shanghai City. The future divisions would be formed in the order of Hubin, Baotao, Feixiong, Yingyang, and Fengxiang. Shanghai City's army would also officially be separated from the 1st and 2nd divisions. Every division would have a unique name. After passing the division's trial, every division would also have a unique flag. The general of the army, Bai Qi, lived up to the expectations of the people and officially became the commander of the Dragonxiang army. As for the commanders of the four divisions, they remained unchanged. At this point, Bai Qi could be considered to have truly gained control of the most powerful military force in Shanghai City. The general of the army was truly worthy of his name. The headquarters of the Dragonxiang army was set up in the Mulan fortress, which was still under construction. It went without saying that the Dragonxiang army had two responsibilities. Internally, it was responsible for guarding the headquarters, Lianzhou County. Externally, it was responsible for the northern expedition. Currently, it was mainly to deal with the challenges from the Taiping, Heavenly Kingdom, and Chiyu City. As Lianzhou County gradually calmed down, the Dragonxiang army's main focus in the future would still be on the northern expedition. This was also the main reason why Ouyang Shuo set up the headquarters of the Dragonxiang army in the Mulan fortress. The Mulan fortress would be the front line and the headquarters of the northern expedition. After Bai Qi became the commander, the military office would conduct a major change in the defense area of the four divisions. Among them, the 3rd Division led by Yi Lai and the 4th Division led by Mu Guing would be stationed at Mulan Fortress. The 3rd Division was a pure infantry division, so it was the best choice to defend the stronghold. The 1st Division led by Shi Wansui would take over the 3rd Division's eastern defense zone. The 1st Division was a light infantry and cavalry mixed division with high mobility, enough to deal with the two defensive zones in front of them. The main focus of their defense was on the 100,000 mountains in the east. According to the arrangement, the cavalry brigade of the 1st Division would be responsible for patrolling the western defense area. The remaining 4 brigades would be deployed along the 100,000 mountains in the east. As for the 2nd Division, it was still stationed in the grasslands. Once the situation in the grassland was completely stabilized, the 2nd Division would reinforce Mulan Fortress at any time according to the situation and needs of the northern battlefield. As for the defense of Shanghai City itself, there were the City Guard Division and the Imperial Guard Division. It might not be foolproof, but it could be said to be impregnable. In addition, the construction of the outer city walls of Shanghai City would be completed in another month or two. There was nothing to worry about in the base camp. To be continued. Chapter 358. Other than forming the Dragonxiang Legion, Ouyang Shuo also formed the 2nd Legion, the Tiger Legion. Ouyang Shuo decreed that Sun Bin would be given the title of Great General and be appointed as the commander of the Tiger Legion. Great General was the highest honor for a general, followed by Great General and then the other generals. Sun Bin was the 2nd general after Bai Qi to receive the title of Great General. The Tiger Legion only had 2 divisions for the time being. The 1st Division would be led by Fan Lihua. The targets were mainly the prisoners of war from the Yan-Huang Alliance, which was a mixed infantry and cavalry division. The 2nd Division would be led by Dai Qin. The targets were mainly the elite cavalry of the Grassland Alliance army that had surrendered, which was a cavalry division. The configuration of the 2 divisions was basically the same as the Dragonxiang Legion's 1st and 2nd Divisions. Other than the ordinary soldiers, there are also a group of mid-level generals who were responsible for the reorganization of the prisoners of war. Among them, there were the generals of the Allied forces and the surrendered generals of the Grassland Alliance. Ouyang Shuo also had arrangements for these surrendered generals. The general principle was to cross posts. For example, the 2 brigade marshals of the Dragonxiang Legion's 2nd Division, Sun Tangjiao and the Shadow Cavalry, would be transferred to the Tiger Legion's 2nd Division and would still be brigade marshals. Of the 7 generals of the Grassland Alliance army, 1 died and 1 was seriously injured in the Battle of Lianzhou. After consulting with Dai Qin, there was 1 who was not suitable to be a brigade marshal. As for the remaining 4, 3 of them were assigned to the Dragonxiang Legion's 2nd Division, while the last one was assigned to the Tiger Legion's 2nd Division, serving under Dai Qin. The remaining 2 brigade marshals of the Tiger Legion's 2nd Division would be promoted from the surrendered generals. Similarly, the Dragonxiang Legion's 1st Division and the Tiger Legion's 1st Division would also have to cross posts. Zhao Yin and Li Mingliang will be transferred to the Tiger Legion's 1st Division. The remaining vacancies would either be filled by the surrendered generals or promoted from the battalion marshals. The 3 battalion marshals, Guo Liang, Su Wang, and Liao Kai, were all promoted. The promotion of a group of old generals ensured Ouyang Shua's control over the 2 legions. The headquarters of the Tiger Legion was not located in Lianzhou County, but in Cliff Mountain City, which was across the sea. When the North Sea Fleet returned, the Tiger Legion would be stationed in Cliff Mountain City with the 3rd Migration Fleet. Jingzhou Island was the real battlefield of the Tiger Troop. Conquering Cliff Prefecture not only met the expectations of Sun Bin and Dai Qin, but also coincided with where Fan Lihua belonged. Such an arrangement could be said to be a stroke of genius. As soon as Cliff Mountain City was established, it was guarded by 2 large field combat divisions. Ouyang Shua believed that ordinary native tribes wouldn't dare to rashly go against Cliff Mountain City. When the Tiger Troop was in place, Cliff Mountain City would welcome a period of rapid development. At this point, the adjustment of the army finally came to an end. Ouyang Shua completed the military structure and personnel arrangement. The remaining work was handed over to the military administration. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shua gave himself a holiday. Ever since the first day of the first month, he had been busy meeting people from all over the world without a moment of rest. Half a day of leisure in a fleeting life. Tomorrow, Ouyang Shua would be busy again. According to his proposal, the members of the Tianshanxi Alliance would gather in Shanghai City tomorrow to hold the annual alliance meeting. Apart from the various lords, Ouyang Shua had also invited the guilds related to the Alliance of Mountains and Seas, including Snow Morning Rose, Cool Breeze Pavilion, Rain Listening Pavilion, and the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group. Rain Listening Pavilion was the guild that secretly cooperated with Feng Xiuhuang. After the promotion of Fallen Phoenix City, Feng Xiuhuang announced the relationship between her and the master of Rain Listening Pavilion, Sword Chi Thunderous. It was with the help of Rain Listening Pavilion that Feng Xiuhuang was 1 step ahead of White Birch and completed the promotion of her territory. Long before the Feng family split, Feng Xiuhuang had started to secretly support Rain Listening Pavilion. Because of her grudge with the leader of Unparalleled Sword Chi, 1 sword from the west, Sword Chi Thunderous left in a fit of anger and founded Breeze Pavilion alone to fight against the veteran guild Unparalleled Sword Chi. In the early days of Breeze Pavilion's establishment, it was extremely difficult for Sword Chi Thunderous to be a woman. Feng Xiuhuang had a unique insight. Although it was her first time playing a game, she had a keen eye for investment. Feng Xiuhuang took the initiative to find Sword Chi Thunderous and expressed that she could secretly support the development of Breeze Pavilion. Just like that, the 2 strong women teamed up. Even after the Feng family split, Sword Chi Thunderous did not give up on their cooperation. Their cooperation withstood the test, and their relationship became more and more solid. When Feng Xiuhuang first found Sword Chi Thunderous and took the initiative to express goodwill to Ouyang Shua, they both had the same goal, which was to accumulate strength in order to break away from the control of the family. Reality proved that Feng Xiuhuang's strategy was extremely successful. It had to be said that Feng Xiuhuang was truly ingenious in the operation of the big picture. In his previous life, Feng Xiuhuang was ranked first among the top 10 beauties of the China region, not only because of her peerless beauty. In the back garden of the Marquis' mansion, Ouyang Shua casually sat in a pavilion. On the grass outside the pavilion, Binger brought a group of children to play the game of eagle catching chicks. Some of these children were natives, and some were the children of players. The world of children was different from that of adults. In their eyes, there was no difference between themselves and the natives. They were all friends. If there were really powerful children who looked down on the natives, it was the result of the adults' instigation. Ouyang Shua was very happy that Binger could make friends. In the afternoon, when he was free, Ouyang Shua specially asked Binger to invite her friends to the back garden to play together. In the garden, other than all kinds of beautiful scenery, Zissou also prepared all kinds of fruits and exquisite pastries. It was a very happy thing for the children to be able to play in the Marquis mansion. Usually, the back garden of the Marquis mansion was definitely a forbidden area for them. Brother Binger ran over with her forehead covered in sweat. Her expression was extremely happy, and her little face was flushed. "Darling, you must be tired." Ouyang Shua handed the little girl a towel and let her wipe her sweat. "I'm not tired." The little girl took the towel, wiped herself twice, and was about to run out again. "What a dirty monkey." Ouyang Shua smiled bitterly and stopped the little girl, saying, "You've played for so long. Why don't you go and call your friends to rest in the pavilion? The food that Sister Zissou prepared for you guys hasn't been eaten yet." Okay, it would have been fine if her brother didn't mention it. Once he mentioned food, Binger was really a little hungry. The little girl turned around and ran back to the grass to call her friends. In an instant, more than 10 children ran to the pavilion. Among these children, the oldest was no more than 10 years old, and the youngest was only 6 or 7 years old. It was the age of innocence. When they ran to the pavilion, they didn't forget to greet Ouyang Shua. They called him by a variety of names: uncle, brother, Marquis. Those who called him Marquis were all native children. When their parents learned that their children were invited by the little princess and could be a guest in the Marquis mansion, not to mention how glorious it was, they couldn't wait to let the whole neighborhood know. Before they left, they repeatedly told their children to salute when they saw the Marquis. Ouyang Shua nodded at them one by one and personally entertained them. At Binger's age, her worldview was slowly forming. Ouyang Shua would not neglect her friends. If he did, it would be worse than offending the little girl herself. Sure enough, seeing her brother warmly entertain her friends, the little girl stood at the side and smiled sweetly. There was a little girl who was only 6.5 years old. She had a round face, big eyes, and long eyelashes. She was very cute. When Ouyang Shua saw her, he couldn't help but pick up the little girl and put her on his lap. The little girl was not shy and kept giggling. Her crisp voice made Ouyang Shua feel refreshed. The fatigue of the past few days was swept away. When he saw these lovely children, all his worries disappeared. While they were busy, Zissou came over. "Marquis, the owner of the 8 Extremes Boxing Club, Lin Yu, is outside and wants to see you." Oh, Ouyang Shua thought for a while and basically guessed the purpose of Lin Yu's visit. Bien K should have finished refining the rhinoceros poison dissolving pill and let Lin Yu take it. Lin Yu came to see the Marquis mansion because his hidden illness had been cured and he was here to thank him. "Bring him here." Ouyang Shua didn't want to go back to the study, so he just received him in the garden. After all, it was not an official business. Yes. After a while, Lin Yu came to the back garden under Zissou's guidance. Seeing the Marquis mingling with a group of children, Lin Yu was a little stunned. In his eyes, the Marquis had always been unfathomable. It was really rare to see the Marquis in real life. "Brother Lin is here. Sit down." Hearing this, Lin Yu sat down anxiously, but only touched half of the stool. With the Marquis's current status, there were not many people who could sit face to face with him. Lin Yu asked himself if he was one of them. Although Bing liked to play, she was very sensible. The little girl was very satisfied with her brother's performance today. Therefore, seeing that her brother was going to entertain the guests, the little girl took the initiative to bring her friends to another pavilion to play. The little princess is so smart. Seeing this, Lin Yu couldn't help but praise. Ouyang Shua shook his head and said with a smile, "She's so naughty every day. I can't control her." Lin Yu didn't reply. Instead, he got up and knelt on one knee. "I thank the Marquis for your kindness." Seeing this, Ouyang Shua hurriedly helped him up. "Brother Lin, there's no need to do this." Lin Yu didn't comply. He bowed deeply before he got up and said, "Fortunately, the divine Dr. Bien K cured my hidden illness. To me, the Marquis is no different from giving me a new lease on life. This is a good thing. We should celebrate." Ouyang Shua was overjoyed and said, "Servants, serve wine." Yes. Soon, a table of exquisite small banquets was set up in the pavilion. Ouyang Shua raised his wine cup. "Come, I propose a toast to Brother Lin. Congratulations on your recovery." Seeing this, Lin Yu was a little emotional. He raised his wine cup with trembling hands. He was originally a tough man, but at this moment his voice was a little choked. There was kindness, joy, and freedom from the hidden illness. He said, "Thank you, Marquis." After that, he drank the wine in his cup. To be continued. Chapter 359. Big Brother Lin's hidden illness is gone. Has his martial arts recovered? Ouyang Shua asked with concern. At this moment, Lin Yu had already controlled his emotions and said, "Rome wasn't built in a day. Although the cold poison in my body has been removed, my body is still damaged. Fortunately, the divine Dr. Bien K gave me a prescription to nourish my body. As long as I carefully nourish my body for a month or two, I will be able to completely recover." Ouyang Shua nodded his head and said, "The Marquis Mansion also has a few great tonics. Later, this Marquis will send some to Big Brother Lin. It's more important to recuperate his body." Some of these precious medicinal ingredients were sent by the mountain barbarians, and some were also sent by the Chamber of Commerce. Seeing that Lin Yu was about to refuse again, Ouyang Shua rushed to say, "Big Brother Lin doesn't need to decline. Just take it as this Marquis's token of appreciation. Leaving these herbs in the Marquis's mansion is a waste. It's better to make the best use of them." At this point, Lin Yu naturally could not refuse. "I thank the Marquis." Ouyang Shua nodded and picked up the teacup on the table. Lin Yu understood and stood up to leave. From the beginning to the end, neither of them talked about the Bajiquan Club merging with the Eastern Fensword sect. Lin Yu was a smart person. Ouyang Shua believed that once Lin Yu recovered his martial arts, he would naturally give him a satisfactory answer. After Lin Yu left, Ouyang Shua saw that Bing, and the others were having fun, so he didn't go over to join the fun. Instead, he stood up and left the back garden, heading towards the stables. The stable was located in a corner of the manor. It was Ouyang Shua's personal stable. Inside the stable, there was the black whirlwind that had followed Ouyang Shua since the beginning, as well as the elite cyan beetle horse that he was currently riding. In addition, there was an exceptionally handsome war horse in the stable. It was also a cyan beetle horse, but it was even bigger than the elite cyan beetle horse beside it, and was extremely mystical. On the first day of the first lunar month, the leaders of the various tribes of the prairie paid a visit to Ouyang Shua. Naturally, they had prepared sufficient gifts. Among them, the Sky Order tribe's gift was the most precious. The gift that the Sky Order tribe had prepared was this war horse in front of them, the Green Beetle Horse King. This Green Beetle Horse King was the leader of all the green beetle horses on the grasslands. It had always been regarded as the exclusive property of Kanmuk. In order to protect his other properties, Mengke had no choice but to endure the pain and give this Green Beetle Horse King to Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua was overjoyed when he obtained this divine chariot. He immediately told Mengke's eldest son, Jita, that Jita could take up a post in the Blessed Abode, and that there was no need for him to move to Shanghai City. When Jita heard that, he was also excited in his heart. He knew he had made the right bet. Reality proved that the charm of the Green Beetle Horse King was fatal to a general. Ouyang Shua obtained the Green Beetle Horse King and immediately named it Green Lightning. Name: Green Beetle Horse King, Spirit Beast. Alias: Green Lightning. Weight: 200 kg. Speed: 120 kilometers per day. Consumption: 10 units of rations/day. Skills: Psychic, extremely spiritual. Lightning speed: speed increases by 50% for half an hour. Evaluation: according to legend, the cyan beetle horse is the product of an ancient divine insect, the cyan beetle, and a wild horse. As a result, the green beetle horse inherited the green beetle god's will. It ran like the wind and knew the way. It was a top-level warhorse. Ouyang Shua could be said to be very attentive towards Azure Lightning. No matter how busy he was, he would always make time to feed Qing Dian personally so as to improve their relationship. Undoubtedly, Qing Dian was extremely arrogant. Previously, it had been raised by Meng Ke. Now that the environment had changed, it was indifferent to Ouyang Shua. In the past few days, Ouyang Shua had not ridden Qing Dian even once. If Ouyang Shuo had not used the savage taming technique to successfully tame Qing Dian, perhaps now, Qing Dian would not even eat a bite of Ouyang Shuo's food. It would rather starve to death. Ouyang Shuo came to the stable. Whether it was the Black Whirlwind or the elite Cyan Beetle horse, they all seemed very excited. Only Qing Dian glanced at Ouyang Shuo, snorted, and then continued to comb its hair. One arrogant guy, Ouyang Shuo did not care. As usual, he fed the three beloved horses and combed Qing Dian's hair to deepen their relationship. In less than half an hour, he left the stable. When he returned to the back garden, it was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It happened to be late, and the children were preparing to leave. Seeing this, Ouyang Shuo asked the guards to escort them home. The security of Shanghai City was naturally worry-free. Ouyang Shuo's arrangement was enough to give Bing her face. One could imagine how excited the little girl was when they were having dinner that night. February 25th, the 5th day of the first month. Before 9 o'clock in the morning, Ouyang Shuo and Mu Lanyue waited beside the teleportation array to welcome their allies. This Mountain and Sea Alliance conference could be considered as an internal gathering, and the discussion was also about cooperation between teams. Therefore, the participants were mainly players, and the historical figures of the various territories did not come. Over at Shanghai City, Ouyang Shuo did not arrange for Fan Zhongyin and the others to accompany them. In Lingxi City, the four beauties of Qinghong, Zibai, and Zibai were all present, competing with each other for beauty, especially Violet, who dominated the scene as soon as she appeared. Compared to her, Mu Lanyue, Qingyi, and the other girls were like little white flowers. On the forum, Violet had a large number of loyal fans and was called Purple Enchantress. Accompanying by Hua was her brother, the pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion. Bright Moon Illuminates the River. Although Bright Moon Illuminates the River was only 2 years older than Bai Hua, he looked a little older. At first glance, one would think that he was a middle-aged uncle, but his personality was extremely forthright. According to Violet's gossip, Bright Moon Illuminates the River was pursuing Red Eagle, which was really surprising. Logically speaking, the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. With his younger sister, Bai Hua, as a cover, Bright Moon Illuminates the River had an innate advantage. Whether it was pursuing the enchanting and charming, peerless enchantress, Violet, or the pure and lovely, flat-chested, lowly Qingyi. Unexpectedly, this uncle had taken a liking to the tomboy Red Eagle. Yet, Red Eagle, who had always claimed that he would not have a boyfriend, had tacitly agreed to Bright Moon Illuminates the River's pursuit. No matter how one looked at it, it was really like the saying, it was fate. In Baiwa City, Feng Xiuhuang brought Qingwan along with the pavilion master of the Tingyu Pavilion, Thunderous Sword. The three beauties all had different temperaments. Feng Xiuhuang was graceful and luxurious, Qingwan was petite and exquisite, and Thunderous Sword was cold and elegant. Rumor had it that Thunderous Sword was quite famous in the pugilistic world and was a great beauty. Unfortunately, after experiencing the love affair with one sword to the west, Thunderous Sword's personality had changed greatly, and she had the momentum of developing into the abyss of annihilation. Even on such an occasion, she still put on a cold and unapproachable appearance. Rumor had it that Thunderous Sword once publicly declared, "There was no good man. Women who had been injured were very scary. Strong women who had been injured were even more scary, as they could destroy the world." In Longshuan County and Hearthstone County, Longshuan Point Checkpoint and Tao Wu were all alone. Through contact, the two of them had similar interests and became a pair of good friends, and they had a closer relationship with each other. In Black Lion County, the Siege Lion brought his good brother, Fat Tiger. If the Siege Lion had walked further and further on the path of seeking death, then Fat Tiger was a clown. He had no idea how these two were paired up. It was said that Black Lion County was in a mess because of this pair of clowns every day. Zhu Sheng had to clean up after them every day, and the old man, who had always worked hard without complaint, finally couldn't help but declare, "I can't stand it anymore. I want to leave." The Siege Lion was so scared that his heart trembled, and he begged for mercy and swore to the heavens. The heavens pitied him, and almost all the affairs in Black Lion County, be it military affairs or territorial government affairs, were handled by Zhu Sheng alone. Once Zhu Sheng left, Black Lion County would collapse. The siege lions swore to the heavens, and only then did he manage to persuade the old man to temporarily give up on the idea of leaving home. After being scared by Zhu Sheng, the siege lion became much more well-behaved. As for how long the drug's effect would last, only the people involved knew. In Xinchuan County, it was the two brothers, Song Wen and Song Wu. Compared to Song Wen, who was calm, Song Wu was a little jumpy. Fortunately, Song Wu was quite talented in leading troops into battle. The newly formed City Guard Division in Xinchuan County was led by Song Wu himself. The Snow Rose mercenary group was naturally led by Xie Yun and Lin Jing, the two big sisters. As adventure-type players began to make a name for themselves, Xie Yun and Lin Jing's status also rose. Their popularity continued to soar, and they had the momentum to compete with White Birch, Feng Qiuhuang, and other female lords. It wasn't just the two of them. Sword Chi Thunderous and A Thread of Love, S leader, also rose in popularity. The four of them were named the four heroines of adventure-type players. Among the four, Lin Jing was the most popular. It was because Lin Jing wielded the 7-star dragon's well, one of the 10 famed swords. With this godly weapon, Lin Jing's battle prowess was off the charts. In less than 2 months, he had successfully defeated many Jianghu experts. For a time, even the position of the #1 adventure-type player, Bloody Romance, was challenged. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Bloody Romance led the elites of the Bloodlust mercenary group and successfully cleared the Secret Realm in the Secret Realm Exploration Scroll. This was also the first Secret Realm that a player had cleared. In the Secret Realm, Bloody Romance had gained a lot. Not only did he obtain the ultimate technique of the Bloodblade sect, the Emperor Tier cultivation technique, Bloodblade Sutra, but he also obtained a purple gold grade weapon, the Bloodblade. With the combination of the two, Bloody Romance's strength soared, and he successfully maintained his position as the #1 adventure-type player. With Lin Jing's strong rise, Snow Rose also benefited. A large group of female players admired Lin Jing's elegance and rushed to Jianya from other royal cities, clamoring to join the Snow Rose mercenary group. In just 2 months, Snow Rose had opened 2 more branches, and their development was rapid. Finally, there was the Rattlesnake mercenary group, who was specially invited. The leader, Black Mamba, was as low-key as ever and came alone. Including Ouyang Shuo and Mu Lanyue, there were a total of 19 people. These 19 players were the core members of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas. After everyone had arrived, Ouyang Shuo jokingly called this a meeting of 19. To be continued. Chapter 360. Because it was not a formal meeting, Ouyang Shuo purposely chose the back garden as the location. At the southwest corner of the garden, there was a pond. In the pond, carps and white geese were playing on the water surface. Beside the pond, there were 3 pavilions arranged in H shape. Surrounding the pavilions was a winding canal. The water was so clear that one could see the bottom, flowing rapidly. This place was built according to the ancient meandering stream. It was quite elegant. Such an elegant place was a good place to gather friends. Meandering stream, Brother Wui, is so elegant. Even the wooden Bayan could not help but praise. Although Bayan was a man of few words, he had done a lot of research on Chinese culture and was very cultured. Thus, he was very satisfied with Ouyang Shuo's meticulous arrangement. Ouyang Shuo smiled. "Everyone, please feel free to sit." The 3 pavilions were already filled with tea, fruits, and pastries. After receiving Ouyang Shuo's instructions, the servants started to place wine cups filled with 3-flower wine upstream. The wine cups flowed along the river, going around the pavilions and stopping in front of someone. Ouyang Shuo took the initiative to invite Song Wen. Bright Moon illuminates the river, Black Mamba, Xie Yun, Bai Hua, and Feng Qiuhuang, the 3 beauties, to sit together. Mu Lanyue, as half the host, invited Lin Jing, Thunder Sword Chi, Blue Phoenix, Violet, Red Eagle and Cyan E, the 7 girls to sit together. In the last pavilion, dragon-seeking acupuncture point by Siege Lion, Fat Tiger, and Song Wu sat together. Among the 3 tables, Ouyang Shua's table was the most important. The only reason Song Wu was invited was because of his brother-in-law. Of course, when the banquet started, everyone could freely walk between the 3 pavilions. Such a unique arrangement made by Hua and the rest feel at home. The entire morning was basically just idle chatting. They could take the opportunity to discuss some cooperation, some one-on-one, some man-to-many. Ouyang Shua took the opportunity to talk about the coal cooperation with Feng Xiaohuang. The large steel mill led by Lu Mo had basically been completed. The steel mill was located downstream of the canyon, opposite the pier, in the Pool City area. This place had both a water source and wood resources. Before there was coal, they could only use wood to make charcoal, which was the main fuel for the steel mill. In addition, building the steel mill next to the river would also facilitate the transportation of finished steel products. Feng Xiaohuang naturally had no objections to such a large order. Just as Ouyang Shua had deduced, the fallen Phoenix County was filled with coal resources. To her, it was just arranging for some miners. After fallen Phoenix City's advancement, she was worried about where to raise construction funds. According to Lu Mo's estimation, Shanghai City would have to purchase at least 1,500 gold coins worth of coal from fallen Phoenix City every month starting from next month. Wui, you're really the god of wealth. After signing the electronic contract, Feng Xiaohuang chuckled, clearly in a good mood. Bai Hua, who was sitting at the side, saw that the 2 of them had finished discussing business and interrupted. Feng Wu, don't be fooled by him. Feng Xiaohuang was confused. Bai Hua shook his head and said, what is Wui's purpose in spending so much money on the steel mill? Without waiting for Feng Xiaohuang's reply, Bai Hua continued, it's all for the sake of refining good steel to make weapons and equipment. At this point, if Feng Xiaohuang still didn't understand, she wouldn't be Feng Xiaohuang. That's right, the weapons and equipment forged by Shanghai City were going to be sold to them. What comes from the sheep's back? In the end, they still had to foot the bill for the steel mill. Unfortunately, they couldn't reject the weapons and equipment sold by Shanghai City. In other words, she was working for Wui as a free miner. How displeasing. After thinking it through, Feng Xiaohuang's expression became somewhat gloomy. Ouyang Shua smiled bitterly. He didn't know whether he should be happy or sad to have 2 such shrewd partners. Feng Wu, don't listen to Bai Hua. No matter what, at least you've made a profit, haven't you? Feng Xiaohuang shook her head and sighed. I can only think of it that way. Speaking of equipment, Wui, when will the equipment you promised be available to us? Bai Hua took the opportunity to change the topic to the military trade. Feng Xiaohuang was also very concerned about this question. In the Shanghai Alliance, other than Shanghai City, Lingxi City and Fallen Phoenix City had the strongest military. Although they weren't as self-sufficient as Shanghai City, which had warships, crossbows, tang knives, lances, infantry armor, and radiant armor, they still had trump cards. Lingxi City's forte was siege weapons and shields. Fallen Phoenix City's forte was the iron floating armor and heavy swords. Shanghai City also had a need for these 4 items. Needless to say, Ouyang Shua had been drooling over catapults for a long time. During the Battle of Lianzhou, the catapults brought by the Yan-Huang Alliance made Shanghai City suffer. The shields forged by Lingxi City through the technical manual would definitely be better than those forged by Shanghai City's weapons workshop. It was perfect for equipping the mountain barbarians' heavy infantry. Although the iron floating armor had similar functions to the radiant armor, Shanghai City needed it as well. Compared to the iron floating armor, the radiant armor was too exquisite and expensive, making it unsuitable for large-scale cavalry. Heavy swords were even more so. Bai Qi was most proficient with heavy swords. His former Iron Eagle swordsmen all used heavy swords as well. After becoming the commander of the Dragongxiang Legion, Bai Qi could form a personal guard battalion. Bai Qi's idea was to train another Iron Eagle swordsman. Unfortunately, compared to the tang knives and lances, the forging of heavy swords was fundamentally different. If he relied on the weapons workshop, he wouldn't be able to forge heavy swords that met by Chi's requirements. The only way was to purchase them from Fallen Phoenix City. Because they were specialized in one area, Lingxi City and Fallen Phoenix City already had the conditions to export their equipment. Although it had been less than 2 months since Baihua obtained the Siege Weapon Manufacturing Technical Manual, he had the blueprints for the siege weapons, making them relatively simple to manufacture. Secondly, siege weapons didn't require large-scale equipment. As for Fallen Phoenix City, it was limited by its own military strength. The iron floating armor's requirements for war horses were similar to the radiant armors. Fallen Phoenix City couldn't compare to Shanghai City, where they could form 2 or 3 cavalry divisions. After nearly a year of rapid development, Shanghai City's military also had the conditions to export. The 3 of them hit it off, and after a discussion, they decided to implement the equipment exchange plan. Ouyang Shua used 12,000 Tang knives to exchange for 10,000 shields from Baihua to equip the 2 mountain barbarian heavy infantry brigades of the Dragongxiang Legion's 3rd Division. Each soldier would be equipped with 2 shields. Then, he used 800 sets of infantry armors to exchange for 200 catapult from Baihua. Ouyang Shua used 1,500 Tang knives to exchange for 1,000 heavy sword from Feng Qiuhuang for Bai Chi's Iron Eagle Swordsman. Similarly, each Iron Eagle Swordsman would be equipped with 2 heavy swords. Then, he used 7,000 strong bows to exchange for 3,000 sets of iron floating armor. 3,000 sets of iron floating armor was enough to form a heavy cavalry brigade. Baihua and Feng Qiuhuang also came to an agreement. The 3 of them agreed that the weapons and equipment that were sold after the agreement was fulfilled would be the first priority. The meaning was clear. Before the agreement was fulfilled, the weapons and equipment could not be sold. The seemingly inconspicuous exchange agreement had, in fact, solidified the 3 territories' position as the first priority in the alliance of mountains and seas. It would be extremely difficult for the other territories to shake them. It couldn't be helped. Who told the other territories to not be able to get their hands on the weapons and equipment manufacturing manuals? Ouyang Shua also hoped that each member would have 1 or 2 trump cards. After all, the strength of a territory was limited. Even Shanghai City couldn't produce all types of weapons and equipment. Seeing that the 3 leaders had come to an agreement, Xie Xiyun couldn't remain calm. The weapons and equipment produced by the territory were not only attractive to the lords, but also to the leaders of the guilds like her. Among the various types of weapons and equipment, the shields, heavy swords, and strong bows were the most popular among adventure-type players. As for full-body armor, because it was too cumbersome, it wasn't popular among adventure-type players. Only general players, who had mounts, would love these cumbersome armors. Similarly, the Tang knife was an unpopular weapon in the eyes of adventure-type players. It was more suitable for the battlefield. Adventure-type players loved swords the most. The standard equipment produced by the territory was divided into 3 levels: soldier, sergeant, and a general. They corresponded to gold, dark gold, and purple gold equipment respectively. After a year of accumulation, gold equipment was no longer rare among adventure-type players. High-level players all had at least 1 or 2 pieces of gold equipment. Dark gold equipment was still rare, and only high-level players would have 1 or 2 pieces. As for purple gold equipment, it was already the highest grade of equipment. As such, the standard equipment produced by the territory was the most suitable for the guild's elite groups. Compared to the lords, the leaders of the guilds didn't lack money. In fact, from a certain perspective, the leaders of the guilds were even richer than the lords. This was because with the improvement of the guild's warehouse system, as well as the maturity of the guild's gold farming groups, the amount of public funds available to the leaders of the guilds was considerable. This was the reason why the leaders of the guilds spent so much money in the second system auction. At the auction, Lin Jing borrowed 13,000 gold from Ouyang Shua, and he paid it all back in just 2 months. On the other hand, Bai Hua borrowed 10,000 gold from Ouyang Shua, and he still hadn't paid it all back. Comparing the two, one could see the advantages of the guilds in this area. It wasn't that the lords didn't have money, but that the territory's financial income had to be invested into the territory's construction and military expenses. Many times, if the management wasn't good, the territory wouldn't be able to make ends meet. After Lingxi County was promoted to Lingxi County, the demand for funds skyrocketed. Not to mention the fact that Baihua didn't borrow money through the Bank of the Four Seas was already quite amazing. And this was the result of Cool Breeze Pavilion's full support. To be continued. Chapter 361. When Xiesiyun proposed to purchase a batch of bows, shields, and heavy swords from Shanghai City and the other two territories, Ouyang Shuo realized that there was a need to form a military coordination mechanism within the alliance. With Xiesiyun's participation, Bright Moon illuminates the river, Black Mamba, and Songwen had also joined the ranks. It wasn't hard to imagine that Sword Qi Thunderclap, who wasn't in the pavilion, would also have such a demand. As the leader of the alliance, Ouyang Shuo had to be impartial. The general principle was that equipment exchanges took precedence over gold purchases, and small orders took precedence over large orders. If they encountered the same large orders, they would have to split them into small orders and deliver them monthly. Ouyang Shuo revealed his thoughts in detail. I agree. Feng Xiaohuang was the first to express her opinion. Fallen Phoenix City's heavy swords and iron floating armor were extremely popular in both the guild and the territory. They were the second largest military industry in the alliance. It could be foreseen that with these two weapons, Fallen Phoenix City's financial situation would gradually improve, and they would be able to get rid of their current predicament. I agree as well. Baihua also expressed his opinion. Lingxi City's siege weapons and shields were needed by both the guild and the territory, but the demand was limited. There was basically no problem of coordination. Taking siege weapons as an example, apart from large-scale battles, they were basically useless. On the contrary, Lingxi City was a large importer of military equipment. Establishing a coordination mechanism was more beneficial than detrimental to Lingxi City. Of course, the future was constantly changing. No one knew what kind of weapons and equipment manuals they would obtain in the future. It was precisely because of this that they needed to establish a coordination mechanism as soon as possible. Seeing that both of them had expressed their support, Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, since that's the case, we still need to nominate a liaison person to be in charge of the specific communication matters. Do you have a suitable candidate? Feng Qiuhuang shook her head. I can't. I only have Green Phoenix as my assistant. Seeing Ouyang Shuo and Feng Qiuhuang turn their gazes towards him, Baihua could only bitterly smile. After thinking for a moment, he said, then let Violet be the liaison. She's mainly in charge of external relations in the territory. All right, Violet is not bad. Ouyang Shuo nodded in agreement. Who's calling this lady? Right at that moment, Violet walked over with a glass of wine in her hand. Her figure swayed as she walked over flirtatiously. Ouyang Shuo, on the other hand, was calm. He was already immune to beauties like Song Jia and Mulan Yue. As a noble young master, Songwen was used to seeing beautiful women. Black Mamba's snake was a mercenary. Wine and beauties were just his concoctions after carrying out missions. The middle-aged uncle, Bright Moon illuminates the river, placed all his attention on Red Eagle. She noticed that none of the four men present were surprised by her arrival. Violet rolled her eyes in a very unladylike manner. She almost suffered internal injuries from holding back her anger. Baihua glanced at Violet in amusement. It was rare to see her suffer such a setback. Sit here. I was just looking for you. Baihua told Violet about the establishment of the military-industrial coordination mechanism. Violet rolled her eyes and glanced at Ouyang Shuo after listening to him. Then, she said in a charming voice, You're the one who came up with this idea, aren't you, High Lord Wui? You cannot show your sincerity by dragging me out to be a coolie. Ouyang Shuo wasn't fooled and said indifferently, It was Baihua who recommended you. If you want benefits, go look for her. You. Violet was almost angered to death. She didn't even care about maintaining her composure. She said loudly, I don't care. I won't do it if there's no reward. She was actually acting shamelessly. Even a deity couldn't stop a beauty from acting shamelessly. Ouyang Shuo could only ask Bai Hua for help. However, Bai Hua turned a blind eye to her. She picked up her teacup and took a sip. Her actions were elegant. That despicable Wui had used her as a shield just now. Now, she wanted to help? No way. As for the others, Feng Xiuhuang couldn't wait to watch the show. Song Wen and the other men sat upright, afraid that they would get into trouble. Ouyang Shuo knew that he couldn't escape this calamity. Since he wanted to reward her, he couldn't take out an ordinary gift. After thinking for a while, Ouyang Shuo took out a small wooden box from his storage pouch and handed it to Violet. What is this? Don't send me away with some trash. Violet decided to throw caution to the wind. Her words became more and more shrewd. However, Bai Hua knew that this was the real Violet. As for the purple demoness in the eyes of her fans, it was just wishful thinking. Won't you know once you open it? Violet opened the wooden box, and a gentle white light emitted from it. Looking closely, she saw that there was an exquisite piece of yellow silk in the wooden box. There was a string of 24 pearls on the silk. Each pearl was the size of a thumb. They were round and smooth. What was even rarer was that each pearl was the same size. Wow, it's so beautiful! Feng Xiuhuang exclaimed in admiration. A trace of infatuation flashed in her eyes. Women naturally had no resistance to jewelry. If this string of pearls were to be placed in the real world, it would be a priceless treasure. Is this really for me? Violet stuttered. She only wanted to tease Ouyang Shuo. She didn't expect to get such a pleasant surprise. Of course it's for you. Are you satisfied? The pearls were harvested from Sheila Lake. This was the best string of pearls harvested from the Sheila Lake's artificial pearl farm in the past few months. When Shui Shaoxi returned to Shanghai City, he presented it to Ouyang Shuo. Originally, Ouyang Shuo wanted to give it to Song Jia, but then he thought about it. As the military liaison, Violet's service was considered free. As the leader of the alliance, he needed to reward her, so he decided to give the pearls to Violet. In any case, as long as the pearl farm was still around, he wouldn't have to worry about not having top-grade pearls for Song Jia. This gift is too expensive. I can't accept it. Violet was a little embarrassed. She returned the wooden box to Ouyang Shuo reluctantly. Ouyang Shuo waved his hand and said with a smile, "Take it. You have to do your job well after receiving the reward." He deliberately said this to ease Violet's awkwardness. Violet was also a forthright girl. She didn't refuse and accepted the gift happily. Violet was full of energy after receiving the gift. She immediately left the pavilion and went to look for Thunder Sword and Dragon Seeking Acupoint to discuss the requirements for weapons and equipment. After Violet left, Feng Xiuhuang came to Ouyang Shuo's side and whispered, "Wui, do you have more of these pearls? Sell me one of them." Even Bai Hua glanced at Ouyang Shuo, although he didn't ask any questions. Ouyang Shuo felt a headache. He didn't expect that a string of pearls would cause such trouble. "I won't hide it from you guys. That string of pearls was the result of 3 months of artificial pearl farming. If you guys aren't afraid of waiting, it shouldn't be a problem within a year." "That's so long." Feng Xiuhuang was a little disappointed. "Those are top-grade pearls. Do you think they're cabbages?" "All right, I'll wait. You have to save them for me." Ouyang Shuo didn't expect Feng Xiuhuang to be so stubborn about pearls. After a small interlude, the pavilion became lively again. While chatting, Black Mamba suddenly said, "Do you guys remember the mysterious player who bought the hidden class change scroll for Chi Cultivator at a fixed price in the system auction? How could I not remember? I have a good impression of him." "Brother Black, do you have any inside information?" "That's right. According to the information I've gathered, this mysterious player's name is Star Zhichun. He's the successor of a hidden family. 2 days ago, Star Zhichun secretly appeared in the capital as a Chi cultivator and established a guild called Star Alliance." Black Mamba said, "Hidden family? Is there really such a family?" Bright Moon Illuminates the River didn't believe it. "There is," Feng Xiuhuang confirmed. "What's the background of these families? Why are they hiding?" Feng Xiuhuang was born in a large family. She knew quite a lot about the upper echelons. Even a young master like Song, one might not be qualified to know such information. She smiled and said, "Actually, the outside world has always had a misunderstanding about hidden families. Hidden families don't necessarily mean that they're powerful families." Everyone was silent. Indeed, hidden families were said to be miraculous by the outside world because of their mysteriousness. Some of the existing hidden families are descendants of ancient sages or famous generals. Some are descendants of the previous dynasty. There are also families that moved overseas to avoid war and later moved back to their homeland. Of course, there are some famous families from ancient times that have left their legacies. Feng Xiaohuang slowly unveiled the mysterious veil of hidden families. The secret aristocratic families have two common characteristics. Firstly, his family had a long history of learning. Some of them even retain the style of ancient families. Secondly, they keep a low profile. If they want to maintain the family's legacy for hundreds of years, they can't get too involved in the current dynasty. Otherwise, they might get into trouble and lead to the extinction of the family. Among them, some of them have a deep foundation because they have existed for a long time. They have a solid family business and a wide network. Coupled with the mutual marriage between the two clans, the relationship network was even more tangled and complicated. However, there are also some hidden families that have lost their talents due to war or other changes. They can only struggle to survive and fade into the crowd. Some of the hidden clans only had a single heir left in the end, and they only had one heir for 3 generations. The only thing that can prove the glory of their ancestors is a family tree and half a family letter. Everyone understood. That's even stranger. Bright Moon Illuminates the River was still confused. Since Zhi Chun is a descendant of a hidden family, according to Feng Wu's introduction, he shouldn't be like this. Wasn't he so mysterious at the auction? Why did he change his attitude all of a sudden? I don't know. The Black Mamba had unintentionally obtained this piece of information when he was investigating bloodshed. To be continued. Chapter 362. What's even weirder is that no matter how I look at it, it just feels weird. Moon Illuminates the Great River was still puzzled. He continued, "Since Dust of Star is going to establish a guild, with his hidden class, Chi Refiner, and his amazing performance at the auction, there's no need to worry that he won't be able to recruit players, right? Why is he so low-key when establishing a guild? If Brother Black didn't tell us, we wouldn't know. Could it be that this is a special hobby of the aristocratic families?" Song Wen and Feng Xiaohuang were slightly embarrassed. "Brother Mingwe, I don't have such a hobby." "Aha! Wrong, wrong." Moon Illuminates the River was also stunned. Only then did he realize that he had said the wrong thing. Bai Hua was also speechless when he saw that his big brother couldn't control his big mouth. Ouyang Shual was silent. He guessed that perhaps Dust of Star's family had different opinions on whether or not he should appear. That was the only explanation for Dust of Star's strange and contradictory behavior. There's something more interesting. Although the Black Mamba didn't know the reason, it still had some information to reveal. What? Guess what? On the day of the establishment of the Star Alliance, Di Chun personally came to congratulate them. There was another period of silence in the pavilion. The information that the Black Mamba revealed was really thought-provoking. Would Di Chun and the other prominent forces collude with the hidden aristocratic families? After the defeat in the Lianzhou battle, the Yanhuang Alliance had been silent for a while. They were probably going through some internal pain. To the Yanhuang Alliance, if they could rope in the hidden aristocratic families, it would undoubtedly be a good move. Don't worry about them. Just do our own things. Ouyang Shual waved his hand and said with a smile. With the Mountain and Sea Alliance's current strength and influence, they had the confidence to deal with any challenges. Wui is right. In the end, we still have to rely on our strength. Which of the people present had not been through great storms and waves? The Yanhuang Alliance's little tricks weren't enough to scare them. Not to mention Ouyang Shaw, even Bai Hua, and Feng Xiaohuang had gained a lot from this round of territory battles. To the Yanhuang Alliance, their greatest weakness was achievement points. As long as Di Chun and the others didn't become marquises, their territory would not have a chance to rise. Speaking of the Star Alliance, I have an idea. Siyun suddenly said, of the 10 major guilds, the Alliance takes up 3, plus the Rattlesnake mercenary group. Could he follow the example of a territory alliance and form a guild alliance? This way, we can advance and retreat together in some guild operations. That's a good idea. I agree. Bright Moon Illuminates the River was the first to agree. I won't hide it from you all. Actually, I've had this thought for a long time, but I was afraid that it wouldn't be enough. It would be best if clan leader Xie could come forward and take charge. I agreed to. The Black Mamba snake followed suit. Since that's the case, let's call Sword Chi Thunder over for discussion. I'll go get her. Feng Qiuhuang volunteered and left. He was happy to see Ouyang Shuan not interfere with Siyun's guild alliance. Previously, Snow, Sorrow, Rose, and the other guilds had said that they were part of the Mountain and Sea Alliance. However, due to the limitations of the system, guilds and territories could not truly form an alliance. Their cooperation was not guaranteed by a contract. As such, the relationship between guilds and the alliance of mountains and seas was not close. Apart from that, some of the cooperation within the alliance was limited to one-on-one cooperation between guilds and territories. For example, Snow Rose with Shanghai City, Cool Breeze Pavilion with Lingxi City, and Tingyu Tower with Fallen Phoenix City. In reality, there was no cooperation between guilds. If they could form a guild alliance under the framework of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas, the situation would naturally be different. Siyun's idea of forming a guild alliance had a big background. As adventure-type players began to appear, there was constant friction between guilds, especially between guilds in the same royal city. From time to time, small-scale guild wars would break out. After the territory wars, the guild wars would also usher in a small peak. Speaking of this, it was necessary to mention the setting of the royal city. The 9 royal cities were not isolated cities, but a complete ecosystem. The periphery of the royal city could be roughly divided into 3 circles. The circle closest to the royal city was called the village circle and was densely packed with NPC villages. The main function of these villages was to provide food, vegetables, fruits, and other daily necessities for the people living in the royal city and the tens of millions of adventure-type players. For adventure-type players, the NPC villages were similar to beginners' villages. In the villages, players could receive some daily quests, such as fighting monsters and exploring. If the leisure players, who were mainly middle-aged and elderly, did not like the crowded life in the royal city, they could also choose to settle in the NPC villages and live the life of a farmer and enjoy the countryside. The second circle outside the royal city was all kinds of resource points. Large farms, royal pastures, orchards, tea plantations, fish ponds, forests, and mines. There is no doubt that these resource points were used to transport raw materials for the industries and handicrafts of the royal city. The major resource points were also a paradise for life professional players. Players worked in the various resource points as hired workers, earning a meager salary while training their life skills. The third circle outside the royal city was the main battlefield for combat professional players. Forests, grasslands, deserts, cemeteries, mountains, lakes. There were all kinds of terrains and different high-level monsters for players to train in. The deeper they went, the higher the level of the monsters. At the same time, it was also a gathering point for all kinds of rare materials. After the live professional players advanced to the intermediate level, they needed all kinds of rare materials to train their skills. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for them to make a name for themselves in the second circle. Outside the third circle was the real wilderness, which was also the territory of the Overlord players. The focus of the major guilds was concentrated in the third circle, fighting for leveling up and rare material gathering points. All the good places were basically controlled by the major guilds. It was already extremely difficult for a lone ranger to survive in the third circle's periphery. Therefore, even the most unsociable adventure-type players would form an adventurer team with their friends. In the past, adventure-type players were not high-level and did not have good equipment. so most players could only move around in the first and second circles. Only the elite groups of the major guilds could establish a foothold in the third circle. A year had passed, and the situation had changed. A large number of players began to have the ability to explore the third circle. What followed was naturally the competition and occupation of resources. Therefore, the competition between the guilds began to become more and more intense. Snow Death Rose Mercenary Group was the second largest guild in the China server, and no other guild in Jianya could challenge their position as the overlord. Even so, Xiesian had to prepare for a rainy day. Many ants could even kill an elephant. In the face of a group of tens of millions of players, the power of a guild was ultimately limited. Just like the territory war, in the future, it would be possible to fight across the capital city in the guild war. In the guild war, the ability of an elite group was very terrifying, and it was enough to change the direction of the war. By forming a guild alliance, they could coordinate with each other. Based on the common understanding, the formation of the guild alliance went very smoothly. The Snow Rose Mercenary Group, the Breeze Pavilion, the Tower of the Rain, and the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group officially formed an alliance. As soon as the alliance was formed, it became a giant in the China server. The alliance contract stipulated that the members should help each other and share information. An alliance contract wasn't as simple as adding a few allies. Take the Breeze Pavilion as an example. After joining the Guild Alliance, it had the support of the Alliance, and its development and expansion in Dali would be even more confident. If the local guilds in Dali wanted to unite against the Breeze Pavilion, they would have to consider the Alliance's support. Seeing that the Guild Alliance had been formed, Ouyang Shua took the opportunity to mention the Cliff State. For adventurous players, the Cliff State was definitely attractive. Ouyang Shua planned to invite the other guilds to send elite groups to explore the Five-Finger Mountain. After listening to Ouyang Shua's description of the Cliff State, the eyes of the four guild leaders lit up. The mysterious Five-Finger Mountain and the secret realm of Nanshan Grotto Heaven were all tempting. Shua, you did a good job in keeping it secret. Lin Jing began to grind her teeth. This was the first time Ouyang Shua exposed the Cliff State to his allies. Even during the Battle of Lianzhou, Bai Hua and the others didn't know where Ouyang Shua went. Ouyang Shua smiled without saying a word. Only by forming the Tiger Army, the Cliff State would have the confidence to welcome guests from all over. Ouyang Shua didn't expect there to be no spies from other forces within the guilds. It was foreseeable that once the elite groups of the guilds were invited to the Cliff State would definitely be exposed to the world. If there was no army to guard the Cliff State, Ouyang Shua wouldn't act rashly. Ouyang Shua also hoped to use the adventurous players to clear the wild beasts outside the territory. At the same time, the arrival of the players could also boost the territory's economy. Therefore, this was a win-win cooperation, and everyone would take what they needed. The 200,000 gold coins that Binger drew seemed to be a lot, but it wasn't a limit for a city to spend. Not to mention other things. Just the military food supply of the Cliff Mountain City for half a year was a large sum. The price of food in the market was basically stable at 12 copper coins per unit. The 27,000 soldiers of the Tiger Army, plus the war horses, consumed an average of 100,000 units of food every day. Theoretically, the climate conditions of Jingzhou Island could allow them to grow rice 3 times a year. Unfortunately, with the agricultural technology of ancient times, it was temporarily impossible to achieve. Therefore, there were still more than 3 months until the first rice harvest in June. In other words, they needed to prepare at least 10 million units of food. Including other food consumption, they needed to prepare 15,000 gold coins just to buy food. The military food was only a small part of the expenses. The construction of the territory and the expenses of the army were the main expenses. Because of this, Ouyang Shua was always thinking about how to make money. To be continued. Chapter 363. According to the agreement, on the 1st of March, the 3 guilds would each send an elite group to the Cliff State. A guild's elite group had 500 people, and the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group had less than 600 members, so they did not participate in the Cliff State's pioneering operation. After the discussion about the Cliff State, it was almost noon. Ouyang Shuo hosted a banquet in the Shanghai court to entertain the guests. After lunch, it was free time. Everyone was free to form groups, tour Shanghai City, or find a place to discuss cooperation. No one knew what Violet was thinking, but she actually encouraged Mu Lanyue to take the girls to the beach to swim. At this time of the year, the North Bay was still a little cold. Not a good time to swim. Fortunately, players had special physiques, so if they really wanted to go, they could barely go into the sea. Ouyang Shuo completely underestimated the attraction of the beach and the sea to girls. Not only Violet, but among the 10 girls, except for Red Eagle, all were persuaded by Violet and left. Red Eagle did not go, most likely because she had already been abducted by Bright Moon Illuminates the River. Siege Lion, Fat Tiger, and the other male companions wanted to go to the beach, but they were mercilessly rejected. Pervert, Violet rejected them like this. Siege Lion and the others' plan died in their throats. Unwilling to give up, Siege Lion could only take his good brother Fat Tiger to the brothel in Shanghai City to spend time. He even shamelessly called it, to inspect the entertainment industry of Shanghai City, to observe and learn. Songwoo also went with them. Compared to Songwon, Songwoo's private life was simply rotten to the extreme. In reality, he was a typical playboy, changing girlfriends at least once a month, never the same. Songwon toured Shanghai City with Dragon Seeking Acupoint and Tao Wu. As a textbook for territory construction, Shanghai City had too many things for them to learn and figure out. Many of the details of the city's construction had to be personally experienced by the Lord in order to understand them. Ouyang Shuo called the Black Mamba to the study alone. He personally brewed a cup of hot tea, pushed it in front of the Black Mamba, and asked with a smile, "Brother Black, is there any progress in the investigation of Bloodblade?" Since Ouyang Shuo had entrusted the investigation to Rattlesnake, he did not ask about it during the process. There were 2 reasons for inviting the Black Mamba to the Alliance of Mountains and Seas Conference. The first reason was to help him expand his network, and the second reason was to investigate the Bloodsaber incident. Rattlesnake had been investigating Bloodblade for 2 months, and it was time to close the net. There was no point in dragging it out any longer. If he really couldn't find any clues, Bloodblade would have gotten rid of them long ago. Things are more troublesome than I thought. The Black Mamba Snake's expression was solemn. Such an expression was rarely seen on his face. From this, one could see the brilliance of Bloodblade. Ouyang Shuo didn't say anything and slowly drank a mouthful of hot tea. Right now, his ability to maintain his composure was getting more and more profound. He wouldn't be impatient no matter what he encountered. Based on the clues you provided, our men indeed found bloodshed, space in Kyoto. Unfortunately, we were a step too late. When we got there, the place was already empty. The Black Mamba Snake was a little dispirited. Rattlesnake had spent a lot of effort just to find this base. Who would have thought that when they got there, they wouldn't even find a hair? Ouyang Shuo was silent. Bloodblade wasn't conceited. They knew that if the assassination failed, they would definitely seek revenge on them. Thus, they decided to cut their losses and simply gave up on the base in Kyoto. Encountering such a seasoned opponent was really a headache. Apart from a base, there's no other news? The Black Mamba Snake was startled for a moment. He smiled bitterly and said, "You might not believe it if I say it, but we accidentally found out that Bloodblade has already taken the initiative to withdraw the kill order against you. Because the information came too easily, the Black Mamba Snake suspected that it was a smokescreen released by Bloodblade." This was interesting. Ouyang Shuo frowned. He thought of something and said, "I'm afraid that Bloodblade released this news on purpose. Where did your men receive this news?" The Black Mamba Snake said with certainty, "We received the news 10 days ago." 10 days ago? Ouyang Shuo's lips curled into a smile. He said, 10 days ago? That's when the Battle of Lian Province just ended? Bloodblade is really well informed. Oh, what do you mean? The Black Mamba Snake's eyes narrowed. Ouyang Shuo nodded and didn't explain. Ouyang Shuo could roughly guess Bloodblade's mentality. Thinking about it, The tyrannical strength that Shanghai City displayed in the Battle of Lian Province must have shocked the higher-ups of Bloodblade. Perhaps there were intelligence agents from Bloodblade among the Allied forces. Facing such an opponent, Bloodblade naturally had to weigh the pros and cons. If they forcefully opposed Shanghai City and insisted on assassinating Ouyang Shua, even if they succeeded in the end, the outcome would not be good. Moreover, with the secret investigation of the rattlesnake, Bloodblade faintly felt that the influence and tentacles of Shanghai City were not limited to the two big domains of territories and guilds. Even in the gray area, Shanghai City also had helpers. Dealing with such a Shanghai City was really not worth it. Therefore, Bloodblade intentionally released the news to show their goodwill. Ouyang Shua thought for a moment and said, "How about this, Brother Black? Think of a way to send a message to Bloodblade." "Speak." Bloodblade wasn't the only one who was shocked by the Battle of Lian Province. Even the Black Mamba Snake, who had always maintained close cooperation with Shanghai City, was really shocked when he heard the result. The Yin-Huang Alliance, from an outsider's point of view, was a colossus that caused people to tremble in fear. But such a super invincible giant, after meticulously planning and using all his strength to attack, even with the support of the natives, in the end, still suffered a crushing defeat. Perhaps even Ouyang Shua himself didn't know how afraid outsiders were of Shanghai City. Therefore, the attitude of the Black Mamba Snake towards Ouyang Shua was more and more respectful. Ouyang Shua sensed the emotions of the Black Mamba Snake, but he didn't say anything and continued, "Tell Bloodblade, I want Lord Chunshin to be killed in public once. Once this is done, all grudges will be written off." Ouyang Shua also didn't want to be entangled with Bloodblade. Maybe in the future, he would still need Bloodblade. Since Bloodblade had already expressed his goodwill, Ouyang Shua was naturally happy to have another friend. But towards Lord Chunshin, he still couldn't let go. Although in the Battle of Lian Province, Lord Chunshin had already died in battle once and even dropped the Golden Qilin seal, only by stabbing Lord Chunshin to death once. Ouyang Shua would be able to vent his anger. Hearing this, the Black Mamba Snake laughed. "This is a good idea. You are really bad." Ouyang Shua wanted Bloodblade to assassinate Lord Chunshin, naturally to clearly tell Bloodblade that he already knew who the financial backer behind Bloodblade was. At the same time, it was also to tell Lord Chunshin that Ouyang Shua had long seen through his little tricks. As for how he would choose, it would depend on the sincerity of Bloodblade. Thinking about it, when the higher-ups of Bloodblade received Ouyang Shua's request, their expressions would be very interesting. Let's not talk about them. Ouyang Shua waved his hand and continued, "Brother Black, I wonder if you have considered my previous suggestion. Can you give me a reply?" The suggestion that Ouyang Shua was referring to was to let Cobra and Viper hold positions in Shanghai City. Cobra planned to be the director of the military intelligence, while Viper planned to be the chief instructor of the Special Operations Training Base. In this period of time, Ouyang Shua had also chatted with Cobra and Viper. In their hearts, they were more willing to hold positions in Shanghai City. After all, Ouyang Shua had arranged for them to hold key positions. Especially for Cobra, the position of the director of the military intelligence was really too tempting. On the other hand, the two were more nostalgic and could not bear to part with their comrades in Rattlesnake. The Black Mamba Snake's expression turned serious, and his smile disappeared. He was also in a dilemma. In the Rattlesnake mercenary group, besides Black Mamba himself, there were 5 other core members named after poisonous snakes. Cobra and Viper were 2 of them. Once the 2 of them left the group, it would have a huge impact on Rattlesnake. Moreover, the Black Mamba Snake was also worried that once a precedent was set, it would not be easy to lead the group in the future. And this was the most fatal. Seeing the expression of the Black Mamba Snake, Ouyang Shua already had some understanding in his heart. Ouyang Shua knew that if he could not come up with a creative solution, not only would his plan of poaching people fail, it would also affect the cooperation between Shanghai City and Rattlesnake. After all, as long as there was a knot in their hearts, it would be impossible for them to cooperate intimately. Ouyang Shua thought for a moment and decided to throw out his trump card. Just as the Black Mamba snake was worried, previously, Ouyang Shua indeed wanted to gradually incorporate the rattlesnake mercenary group through poaching people one by one. Now that he thought about it, his original idea was indeed not considered. Since that was the case, Ouyang Shua wanted to try and see if he could solve the problem in one go. May I ask, Brother Black, what do you want to bring the rattlesnake mercenary group to in the end? Ouyang Shua changed the topic and threw out a big question. Hearing this, the Black Mamba snake smiled bitterly. To tell you the truth, I really have not thought about it. You also know that we are a group of soldiers, and other than fighting, we do not know anything else. Whether it is in reality or in the game, those who are capable will accept employment and make a lot of money. Make money, drink the strongest alcohol, sleep with the sexiest women. That is our goal. Ouyang Shua nodded his head. The Black Mamba snake's words were crude, but the logic was crude. Since it is like this, then let me be the only employer of the rattlesnake mercenary group. How about it? The Black Mamba snake's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? He knew that for Ouyang Shua to say such words, it was not without reason. Simple. Ouyang Shua did not keep him in suspense. The rattlesnake mercenary group will move to Shanghai City and exclusively serve Shanghai City. I will double your total income. How about it? The Black Mamba snake had to admit that he was completely stunned by Ouyang Shua's big move. To be continued. Chapter 364. Even if Ouyang Shua offered a high price, the Black Mamba was still doubtful. Money is only one aspect. The Black Mamba paused and organized his words before saying tactfully, the most important thing is that our brothers are used to being undisciplined. I'm afraid they won't be able to adapt to staying in the same place. Ouyang Shua nodded and said, Brother Black, you don't have to be in a hurry to refuse. You can listen to my arrangements for the rattlesnake mercenary group first before making your decision. Please speak. If the rattlesnake mercenary group moves to Shanghai City, there are 4 options. Ouyang Shua's thoughts became clearer as he said slowly. First, to be a spy in the military intelligence department. Second, to be an instructor in the special combat training base. Third, to enter the Shanghai City Army as a scout squadron leader or a battalion commander. You can choose. In the future, it's not impossible to accumulate military merits and be promoted to a brigade commander. The position of brigade commander was the red line drawn by Ouyang Shua. Above that, the commander of a division had to be an NPC general. No matter how confident Ouyang Shua was, he didn't dare to hand over an army of tens of thousands to a player. Ouyang Shua's first 3 conditions had already moved the Black Mamba, especially the third one. The Black Mamba knew that there wasn't a single player in the Shanghai City Army. Obviously, in order to rope them in, Ouyang Shua had broken the rules of the army. His sincerity could not be said to be insufficient. What was even more rare was that the 3 options catered to 3 types of personnel. Basically, the members of the Rattlesnake mercenary group could find a suitable position in Shanghai City according to their preferences and specialties. Even so, the Black Mamba was still calm and collected. He wanted to hear the last option of Ouyang Shua. After all, although the first 3 options were tempting, they still had to stay in the territory and accept the leadership of the Shanghai City Army. This still didn't solve the most important problem. As mercenaries, some members like to go around and inquire about information. They didn't want to be cooped up in one place. The last option is related to you, Brother Black. Ouyang Shua glanced at the Black Mamba and said with a smile, Related to me? Immediately, the Black Mamba's interest was completely aroused. The Black Mamba snake was doubtful. There was another reason. Perhaps it didn't think that it would subconsciously reject Ouyang Shua's proposal. One of the reasons was that Ouyang Shua's plan seemed to have nothing to do with the Black Mamba snake. As the leader of the Rattlesnake mercenary group, Black Mamba couldn't accept that his power would fall to someone else. Not bad. Ouyang Shua nodded and said, Brother Hey, you should know that Shanghai City has set up offices in the 9 royal cities. On the surface, the office was just a point of contact. Secretly, It's also an intelligence station. The Black Mamba snake understood. This kind of arrangement was too common. In the real world, embassies stationed abroad had the same responsibilities. The original intention of building the intelligence station was good, but the reality is very cruel. I've never been satisfied with the work of the intelligence station in Royal City. Basically, they haven't obtained any important information. At this point, Ouyang Shua could only shake his head and sigh. If the various intelligence stations had been a little more helpful in investigating the bloodshed incident, Ouyang Shua wouldn't have asked Rattlesnake for help. You mean, you want me to preside over the intelligence station? The Black Mamba snake's expression was a little displeased. An intelligence station chief was not worthy of his attention. In comparison, the director of the Military Intelligence Bureau was even more important than the director of the intelligence station. He couldn't be worse than Cobra, right? Ouyang Shua smiled and said, "Of course, I won't let Brother Hay suffer like this. I'm preparing to set up an organization called the Black Snake Guard. With the 9 intelligence stations in Royal City as the center, it will radiate to the entire China region. It will be responsible for the investigation, analysis, and organization of external intelligence in the territory. I wonder if Brother Hay is interested in being in charge of establishing and leading the Black Snake Guard." The Black Mamba snake's eyes lit up when he heard this. According to Ouyang Shua's description, the authority of the Black Snake Guard was very big. The position of the Black Snake Guard was similar to the CIA in the early years, mainly responsible for external intelligence. In Ouyang Shua's plan, the Military Intelligence Bureau, the Black Snake Guard, and the yet-to-be-established Security Bureau would be the 3 intelligence agencies of the territory in the future. The Military Intelligence Bureau was only responsible for military intelligence, and the Black Snake Guard could only operate outside the territory. The Security Bureau was responsible for monitoring all activities and personnel in the territory. Its position was above the Military Intelligence Bureau and the Black Snake Guard, and it was the core intelligence agency in Ouyang Shua's plan. It was because of the Security Bureau's supervision that Ouyang Shua could be at ease and let the Black Mamba snake establish the Black Snake Guard. The Security Bureau, this heavyweight department, had not been established, mainly because Ouyang Shua could not find a suitable candidate to be in charge of establishing and leading the Security Bureau. Without a doubt, the Security Bureau had to be Ouyang Shua's most trustworthy person. At the same time, since they were in charge of monitoring the Military Intelligence Bureau and the Black Snake Guard, the Security Bureau's ability in intelligence work was naturally very high. Among the territory's NPCs, even maintaining the operations of the Military Intelligence Bureau was hard enough. Who else had the ability to shoulder this heavy responsibility? Therefore, Ouyang Shua could only delay the establishment of the Security Bureau. And with the future change of generals in the Military Intelligence Bureau and the establishment of the Black Snake Guard, the establishment of the Security Bureau had to be put on the agenda and became one of Ouyang Shua's key tasks. Ouyang Shua's promise was really full of sincerity. After the Black Mamba snake weighed the pros and cons, it said, "I accept your proposal." As it spoke, the Black Mamba snake got up and came before Ouyang Shua. It cupped its fists and bowed, saying, "The Black Snake greets the Marquis." Ouyang Shua accepted it calmly. Black Snake officially became the code name of the Black Mamba snake in the Black Snake Guard. Next, the two discussed some specific details. First, the Rattlesnake mercenary group left the newly established Guild Alliance and officially disbanded. More than 500 mercenary group members were divided into the Military Intelligence Bureau, the Special Combat Training Base, the Army, and the Black Snake Guard, according to the principle of voluntary participation. From today onwards, the rattlesnake will become a term in history and no longer exist. Second, every mercenary group member would receive a one-time settlement fee of 200 gold coins. The 5 core members would receive a one-time settlement fee of 1,000 gold coins. As for the Black Mamba snake, Ouyang Shua paid a one-time settlement fee of 5,000 gold coins. The families of the mercenary group members would all be moved to Shanghai City to settle down. Every family would be given a small courtyard free of charge with all the daily necessities. Just the settlement fee alone Ouyang Shua took out 120,000 gold coins. The Black Mamba snake really had nothing to say about Ouyang Shua's generosity and extravagance. And to Ouyang Shua, to be able to use 120,000 gold coins to take over the Rattlesnake mercenary group was a very good deal. It could be foreseen that with the addition of the Rattlesnake mercenary group, the improvement to the territory would be comprehensive. Not to mention anything else, just in terms of intelligence, they would receive a qualitative improvement. With the expansion of the territory, coupled with the increasingly complicated external environment, intelligence work would become a key basis for the territory's decisions. It was not an exaggeration to place great importance on it. Of course, Ouyang Shua was not a fool. There had to be restraints. More than 500 mercenary group members would individually sign an employment contract and a confidentiality agreement with Ouyang Shua. The contract would stipulate harsh clauses for breach of contract. As such, it could prevent betrayal to the greatest extent. To the Black Mamba snake, this was also an important assessment indicator. Ouyang Shua handed the Black Snake Guard to the Black Mamba snake, so he had to be responsible for the loyalty of the Black Snake Guard members. Third, regarding the Black Snake Guard's funding, Ouyang Shua promised that in the second year of Gaia, the Black Snake Guard would receive 3,000 gold coins a month. The next year's budget would be determined based on the Black Snake Guard's work results. The general principle was that the next year's budget would not be lower than Gaia's standard for the second year. In addition, Ouyang Shua also prepared an additional 10,000 gold coins as the Black Snake Guard startup funds. As such, Ouyang Shua's expenses could be said to be astonishing. Helpless, Ouyang Shua could only use the 200,000 gold coins gold note that Binger had drawn. Thankfully, with the financial revenue in February and a cooperation in Ouyang Shua's rules, he could obtain a large sum of funds in a short period of time. When the funds flowed, Ouyang Shua could fill in the funds. After all, Binger's 200,000 gold coins were used to build Cliff Mountain City. Ouyang Shua would not use it easily. After the discussion, the Black Mamba snake did not stay in Shanghai City and immediately returned to Jianya. Following that, the disbandment and relocation of the mercenary group will be carried out by the Black Mamba snake. After the Black Mamba snake left, Ouyang Shua found Tao Wu and the rest. Tao Wu's Wanshui County was located in the capital region. Ouyang Shua wanted to understand Di Chen's latest movements through Tao Wu. According to Tao Wu, after the Battle of Lianzhou, Di Chen suddenly accelerated the pace of annexation of the surrounding territories. In less than 2 months, the basin where Handan County was located and the rest of the players' territories were almost swept clean. They either surrendered or were eradicated. Although Handan County was not promoted to a county city, it had achieved the same strategic goal as Shanghai City. Ouyang Shua raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Sure enough, the foundation of the aristocratic families was really beyond imagination. Di Chen and the rest had probably started to make arrangements from the moment they chose the location to build the village. Today's operation was just a pull in the net ahead of time. Di Chen might have also realized that since his territory had no hope of becoming a county city in the near future, he had to carry out the annexation of the territory if he did not want to be left far behind by Shanghai City. Of course, if Di Chen did not have the fusion token, such a radical annexation strategy would still have some hidden dangers. For example, in the future population base of the basin, he would suffer a lot. To Di Chen, in order to consolidate his position, this hidden danger was still acceptable. After all, these big forces still had considerable influence and dominance among the players. At worst, they could bring in a large number of players to settle in their territory. To be continued. Chapter 365. Unlike Ouyang Shua, Di Chen and the others were much better at controlling players. The various major powers all had their own set of methods to manage their players. In reality, their families and teams were experts in management. Naturally, there were no obstacles when it came to transplanting it into the game. Hence, Di Chen and the others didn't have to treat the players cautiously like Ouyang Shua and constantly be on guard against betrayal and subversion. Instead, they could do whatever they wanted. From Di Chin's actions, it wasn't hard to infer that War Wolf and the others must have done something similar. The Yan-Huang alliance had suffered a great loss in the Battle of Lianzhou, so they had to make up for it elsewhere. As the Yan-Huang alliance suffered defeat after defeat, their foundation was slowly revealed. To Ouyang Shuo, the unknown Yan-Huang alliance was the most terrifying thing. Ouyang Shuo had no idea how many trump cards the Yan-Huang alliance still had. This information would be investigated by the Black Snake Guard that was about to be formed. As his status rose, Ouyang Shuo's views also changed. Ouyang Shuo had also become more confident in dealing with the players. Lianzhou County was their headquarters, so Ouyang Shuo was naturally very cautious. But in Jingzhou Island, Ouyang Shuo could implement a more open policy. Leading the 3 major guilds into the Cliff State was Ouyang Shuo's first step. In the future, Ouyang Shuo would guide more players to settle in the Cliff State. After all, relying on the immigrants from Shanghai City alone was not enough to satisfy the development of Cliff State. Cliff Mountain City was limited by Binger's title, and the number of refugees was limited. It was like trying to put out a burning cart of firewood with a cup of water. Outside Cliff State, there was a vast expanse of land waiting for Ouyang Shuo to reclaim and use. These pieces of land were all precious treasures. After talking with Lao AI, Ouyang Shuo went to find his brother-in-law, Songwen. Tianchuan County was located in Lingnan. Ouyang Shuo was interested in Lingnan. Therefore, he had to plan ahead. Tianchuan County was undoubtedly a better choice. After all, regardless of whether it was a common interest or a relationship bond, there was a certain level of trust between the two. What do you think about Lingnan, Big Brother? As an economically important province, the local tyrants of Lingnan were not to be underestimated. The 4 consortiums represented by the Song family and the Ruan family were only experts in the economic field. They weren't the ones who were the real decision-makers. For the time being, the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom was only wreaking havoc in Guangxi, which was a great advantage for Lingnan. Taking advantage of this gap in time, the lords of Southridge hastened the pace of forming an alliance. Ouyang Shuo didn't know the specifics. He only remembered that in his past life, the 4 consortiums did not have much influence in Lingnan region. The leader of the Lingnan region was the Southern Alliance. The leader was called He Fo, and he was also a descendant of an aristocratic family. Songwen was startled when he heard Ouyang Shuo ask about Lingnan. For a moment, countless thoughts flashed through Songwen's mind. He was trying to figure out the intention behind Ouyang Shuo's question. On the surface, Songwen's expression was calm as he slowly said, "I have some understanding of the situation in Lingnan. Tell me about it." The 4 consortiums are now divided into 2 factions. The Zhou family is close to our Song family, while the Zhao family is entangled with the Ruan family and gradually drifting away from our Song family. Ouyang Shuo remained silent. He was the root cause of the 4 consortium split. Because of his existence, the marriage plan between the Ruan and Song families had been aborted early on. Not only that, but they had also become enemies. That's not the scariest part. The Lingnan region has already formed an alliance called the Southern Alliance. In order to fight against our Song family, Ruanping has already joined the Southern Alliance. Songwen's heart was heavy as he said this. Obviously, Tianchuan County's situation in Lingnan was not good. Because Tianchuan County belonged to the Mountain and Sea Alliance, the local powers in Lingnan would naturally reject Tianchuan County. Ouyang Shuo smiled when he heard this. It seemed that Ruanping's temper had not calmed down yet. Did he join the Southern Alliance to gain the ability to fight against me? Ouyang Shuo didn't care about this. Ouyang Shuo frowned at Tianchuan County's situation. This brother-in-law of his was elegant, but he lacked a domineering aura that said, "If not me, then who?" Tianchuan County's current passive situation was not unrelated to Song Wen's lack of initiative. Ouyang Shuo had indirectly interacted with the Song family a few times. The impression he got was that these businessmen were keen on scheming, but they lacked boldness and courage. They treated their territory like a company. How could they succeed? This was also the reason why Lord Chunxin was repeatedly suppressed by Di Chun. Although Di Chun had made a series of mistakes in the early days, and his reputation had taken a hit, he was able to quickly regroup and make a comeback. Lord Chunshin couldn't do it. After the Battle of Lian Province, he would probably need a long time to recover. The status of a member of the Mountain and Sea Alliance should not be a hindrance to the development of the territory. On the contrary, if used well, it could become a powerful weapon. In this aspect, Feng Xiaohuang had undoubtedly used the advantage of the alliance to the extreme. She relied on the Mountain and Sea Alliance, and under the framework of the alliance, established a regional alliance, the Mountain and Sea Alliance Phoenix Alliance. In this way, the territory that joined the Mountain and Sea Alliance Phoenix Alliance would be under the protection of Luo Feng City, and would also be under the protection of the Mountain and Sea Alliance. Ouyang Shua approved of Feng Xiaohuang's actions. Ouyang Shua hoped that the members of the alliance, while maintaining the Mountain and Sea Alliance, could gradually exert more influence in the territory. With the territory as the core, it would radiate to the China region. Only by doing this could the Mountain and Sea Alliance gradually strengthen the foundation and form a large network. Could the Mountain and Sea Alliance not be at a disadvantage in the future confrontation with the Yanhuang Alliance? Compared to Feng Xiaohuang, Song Wen was too weak. Ouyang Shua told Song Wen about Feng Xiaohuang's actions and said, "Big brother, don't worry, just do it boldly. I don't believe that the Lord of the Mountain and Sea Alliance and the Southern Alliance can't see the situation clearly." Ouyang Shua's words were tactful. In truth, he was reminding Song Wen that if he continued to be so cautious and indecisive, not only would he be isolated, even the Song family's current ally, the Zhou family, would be pressured into joining the Southern Alliance. At that time, the Song family would really be isolated. Hearing this, Song Wen looked embarrassed. "Don't worry, I know what to do." Ouyang Shua nodded. After all, Song Wen was his brother-in-law, and he could not lecture him too much. Of course, Ouyang Shua did not really leave Tianchuan County alone. He promised that the Mountain and Sea City would support the development of Tianchuan County through the Bank of the Four Seas. Ouyang Shua hoped that Song Wen could stand out and show the name of the Mountain and Sea Alliance, and unite the surrounding Lord-level players to fight against the Southern Alliance. He did not wish for an uncontrollable tyrant to appear in Lingnan. If the conditions allowed, after stabilizing the Cliff Province, and if the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom had not invaded the Milan Fortress, the Mountain and Sea City would first attack Lingnan. Their primary goal was to occupy the Thunder Province, which was across the sea from Jingzhou Island. Jingzhou Island was already Ouyang Shua's exclusive property, and he naturally did not wish for other lords to use Thunder Province as a springboard to interfere in Jingzhou Island's affairs. After chatting with Song Wen, Ouyang Shua did not look for other members to talk privately. At 5 in the afternoon, the ladies returned from North Sea City. At night, Ouyang Shua held a banquet in the Marquis Mansion. There was even a song and dance performance. After the meal, Ouyang Shua invited everyone to the backyard garden for a bonfire party. Ouyang Shua's series of arrangements were to deepen the relationship between the members. He hoped that the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance would not only be business partners, but also brothers and sisters. Not only would they help each other in the game, but they would also work together on the future Hope Planet. Among the members, especially the lords, who had been interacting with NPCs for a long time, they could not help but feel depressed. Bai Hua, Feng Xiaohuang, and the others were fine, as they had close friends and sisters by their side. On the other hand, Bayan and Dragon seeking acupuncture points were very lonely. It was because of this experience that Bayan and Dragon seeking acupuncture points were able to quickly become close friends. After all, which member of the Mountain and Dragon seeking acupuncture points were not under a lot of pressure? Being a lord was not as glorious as it seemed to outsiders. The pressure they were under was unimaginable for adventure-type players. Even the Siege Lion, who seemed to be getting more and more out of tune, was actually using a certain method to release the pressure in their hearts. Otherwise, Zhu Sheng would not have set up such a trap and put on an act. Because of this, Ouyang Shua emphasized on face-to-face communication between the members. Just relying on the Alliance Channel was not going to help. Moreover, the Alliance Channel was a public channel, and it was not appropriate to talk about private matters. The bright moon hung high in the sky, and the night was bright and warm. In an empty space in the garden, a huge bonfire was lit. The 19 youths sat in a circle, drinking and chatting together. They were very comfortable. When she was in the mood, Violet took advantage of the alcohol and started to dance a classical dance around the bonfire. The sexy and graceful dance, coupled with the charm of the classical dance, was really pleasing to the eye. The charm of the purple demon was completely released, and it was irresistible. For a moment, it attracted a series of cheers. "Nice! Sister Violet, you danced so well. Beautiful!" Siege Lion and Fat Tiger, the two perverts, even whistled, exclaiming that this trip was not in vain. Under Violet's lead, the atmosphere of the bonfire party became more and more lively. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the only couple among the group naturally received the attention of everyone. Under everyone's jeering, Moon Illuminates the River licked her face and invited Red Eagle to dance with her. Red Eagle was also a forthright girl. She was not shy in the crowd's jeering and generously accepted Moon Illuminates the River's invitation. As a result, the atmosphere of the party was directly brought to the peak. A group of youths sang and danced around the bonfire. At this moment, they were not lords, nor were they the leaders of the guilds, but a group of youths chasing their dreams. To be continued. Chapter 366. The next day, the members left one by one. Before they left, Ouyang Shua prepared a small gift. Ouyang Shua hoped that similar conferences could become a routine and institutional arrangement. Next year's conference did not have to be held in Shanghai City. The conference could be held in another member's territory. The members took turns to be the host. Only Xie Siyun and Lin Jing stayed after the members left. Shanghai City and Snow Rose still had a big business deal to do. With the reorganization of the Dragon and Tiger Legions, the army eliminated a large number of outdated weapons and equipment. In addition to the weapons and equipment that were cleared from the battlefield during the Battle of Lianzhou, there was a mountain of weapons and equipment. According to the statistics of the Combat Readiness Department, they had sorted out more than 100,000 weapons and 90,000 sets of armor. Even if this batch of equipment was sold for 1 gold coin each, it would be worth 200,000 gold coins. Needless to say, some of the weapons and equipment were of high quality. A rough estimate of the value of this batch of weapons and equipment would not be lower than 300,000 gold coins. As the main distributor of Shanghai City, Snow Rose would naturally make a lot of money. Because the amount was too large, Snow Rose would only take 5% of the profits. This way, Ouyang Shua could earn close to 300,000 gold coins just by selling this batch of equipment. In fact, this amount of money was actually the profits of the 4 major military workshops. This was because the obsolete equipment in the army needed to be replaced with better equipment. Better equipment did not appear out of thin air. It was manufactured by the 4 major military workshops. The military industry began to shine and became the most profitable industry in the territory. It was because of this amount of money that Ouyang Shua was confident in incorporating the Rattlesnake mercenary group. Ouyang Shua had already instructed the finance department to not keep a single gold coin for the revenue of February. All of it was to be transferred to the territory's construction. With the establishment of Lianzhou County, a few large projects started at the same time. The construction of Shanghai City's outer city, Fort Milan, road network, and Blessed City were rated by the construction department as the 4 major projects in the territory. The cost of each project was no less than 20,000 to 30,000 gold coins. Among them, the construction of Shanghai City's outer city was a bottomless pit. According to Wei Ran, it would take at least a year to complete the framework of this unprecedented city. The completed Shanghai City was estimated to be able to accommodate at least 5 million citizens. The government's investment was mainly in the construction of infrastructure and public facilities, including the city roads, municipal water supply and drainage, ports, distribution centers, bridges, parks, temples, bell towers, schools, and so on. According to estimates, the cost of this piece alone was no less than 200,000 gold coins. The Marquis Manor would transfer a portion of the funds, while the Mountain Sea Prefecture would have to raise the majority of the funds themselves. Wei Ran's method was to sell the land, sell the land, sell the land. Inspired by Wei Ran, the magistrate of the Blessed Abode, Shun Jue, decided to adopt a similar funding model when planning the construction of the Blessed Abode. Blessed City was divided into the inner city and outer city. The inner city would be completely built by the government, and most of the land in the outer city would be put up for auction. Among the four major projects, the Mulan Fortress and the road network will be fully funded by the Marquis' residents. Needless to say, the road network belonged to the public construction of Lianzhou County, so it should be paid for by the Lord's Manor. Mulan Fortress, on the other hand, was purely a military fortress. Naturally, it would not allow private funds to flow in or participate in it. According to estimates, the main road network would take half a year to complete, and the construction budget would be 100,000 gold coins. Mulan Fortress would take another 3 months to complete, and the total construction cost would be 70,000 gold coins. Basically, more than half a year of Lianzhou County's revenue would be invested into the territory's construction. If the other medium-sized projects and the huge military expenditure were taken into account, Ouyang Shua would not be able to keep a single gold coin from the territory's revenue in the second year of Gaia. Ouyang Shua might even have to think of ways to raise money to support the territory's finances. The second year of Gaia would be the construction year of Lianzhou County, and it was also the most crucial year. Ouyang Shua looked forward to the economic boom of the completed Lianzhou County, and it would become the strongest and most trustworthy backing for the territory's expansion. That afternoon, Ouyang Shua personally summoned Du Ruhui, Cobra, Viper, and the 3 heads of the military intelligence in his study to announce the relevant personnel appointments. Song Sin stepped down from his position as the director of the military intelligence and became the deputy director, as well as the special operations team leader. Cobra left the special operations training base and officially became the director of the military intelligence. Ouyang Shua's arrangement was to restrain Cobra within the military intelligence. The leaders of the 3 teams under the military intelligence were Ouyang Shua's absolute confidants. Cobra wanted to start a new career in the military intelligence, but it was impossible. Even if Rattlesnake's members joined the military intelligence in the future, their positions would only be below the 3 leaders. The establishment of the military intelligence was personally approved by Ouyang Shua. For the time being, there would only be 3 teams, and they would not be allowed to expand in the short term. During this period of time, Ouyang Shua hoped that Song San, Lung Xian, and Lei Sun could quickly grow under Cobra's guidance and become true giants. In this way, the military intelligence would still be under Ouyang Shua's absolute control. At this point, the 4 departments under the military intelligence were basically complete, except for the military law department. The director of military law department could only be held by Director Du Ruhui for the time being. Be it the operations division led by Zhao Kua, the combat readiness division led by Gu Hongliang, or the military intelligence division led by Cobra, they were all worthy of Ouyang Shua's trust in their abilities. Ever since Du Ruhui took over, the military intelligence had expanded to more than 4 times its previous size, becoming the most important department among the 4. Other than Cobra, another member, Viper, would officially become the chief instructor of the Special Operations Training Base, and his position and treatment would be equivalent to that of a brigade marshal in the military. Under the chief instructor, there would be 5 deputy chief instructors and a battalion commander. The Special Operations Training Base would also become a permanent organization in the military, directly under the jurisdiction of the military intelligence, and would continuously train scouts and special forces for the military. The 27th, the 7th of the first month, the Black Mamba led the members of the Rattlesnake mercenary group and their families to Shanghai City. On that day, more than 550 members chose their respective places to go. The final result was that 113 people would enter the military intelligence as spies, and 45 people would enter the Special Operations Training Base as deputy chief instructors and instructors. 7 of them would become the platoon leaders of the Scouts, and 15 would enter the Army as battalion commanders. One of the 5 corps members, a man named Krite, was given the position of brigade marshal by Ouyang Shuo and entered the Dragonxiang Legion. The remaining 370 people would all enter the Black Snake Guards and build the skeleton of the Black Snake Guards. In 2 days, the Black Mamba had already sorted out the basic structure of the Black Snake Guards and reported to Ouyang Shuo. The headquarters of the Black Snake Guards would be set up in an inconspicuous courtyard in the Shanghai city's official residence district, and it would be mainly responsible for organizing intelligence, analyzing intelligence, and interrogating important targets. The Black Snake Guards would personally oversee the headquarters and coordinate the work of the major intelligence stations. The intelligence stations in the 9 royal cities would each have a commander in charge of the region's intelligence work. The Black Snake Guard would all use code names. Other than the leader, the 9 commanders' code names were Red Snake, Orange Snake, Yellow Snake, Green Snake, Blue Snake, Purple Snake, White Snake, and Ink Snake. The rest of the members were divided into the Black Guard and the Snake Guard. The Black Guard mainly used force to arrest people, similar to the Special Operations Team of the Military Intelligence Department. The Snake Guard mainly disguised themselves and secretly gathered intelligence, similar to the Military Intelligence Team 1 and 2. The Black Guard and Snake Guard each had a commander codenamed Black Guard 1 and Snake Guard 1. The members under them would be arranged according to their serial numbers. The 2 commanders were the last 2 out of the 5 corps members. The commander of the Black Guard was called the White-Browed Viper, and the commander of the Snake Guard was called Bamboo Leaf Emerald. What surprised Ouyang Shuo was that Bamboo Leaf Emerald was actually a woman, a delicate and pretty girl. But from the gazes of the other members of the Black Snake Guards when they looked at Bamboo Leaf Emerald, besides fear, there was not a trace of love. From this, it could be seen how extraordinary Bamboo Leaf Emerald was. Delicate and pretty, but it was only the appearance of Bamboo Leaf Emerald. The status of the 2 commanders was below the leader, the Black Snake Guards, and above the 9 commanders. Ouyang Shuo was very satisfied with the efficiency of the Black Snake Guards. That afternoon, Ouyang Shuo distributed the settlement fees and the funds of the Black Snake Guards in one go. The Black Snake Guards officially began to operate. Other than Ouyang Shuo, there were only 4 bureau chiefs in the territory who knew of the existence of the Black Snake Guards. This mysterious organization did not have any unveiling ceremony. Even the small courtyard of the headquarters didn't have a plaque. There was only a locust tree planted in front of the courtyard. In the future, this unremarkable small courtyard would shock and terrify the world with the name Scholatry Manor. February 28th, the 8th day of the first month. The inventory of the weapons and equipment that had been eliminated temporarily came to an end. Next, snow rows arranged for members to use storage pouches to transport the equipment back to Jianya for sale. Xie Siyun and Lin Jing left Shanghai City. After sending off Xie Siyun and Little Ant, Ouyang Shuo began to patrol Yinzhou County. He would lead a team of personal guard from the western suburbs of Shanghai City, passing through Yongye County and Guangshui County to Tianfeng City, and then turn north to patrol Blessed by God's Manor. After that, he would continue north to patrol Milan Mansion and Milan Fortress. After leaving Milan Mansion, he would turn south to Duanan City, pass through Yishui County and Gushan County, and finally return to Shanghai City. The entire patrol would take at least 25 days. At the same time, it also meant that when the elite squads of the 3 major guilds arrived at Cliff State, Ouyang Shuo would not be able to appear in Cliff Mountain City. Ouyang Shuo had already sent a letter to Sun Xiaoye, asking her to represent him and be in charge of receiving the 3 elite squads. Sun Xiaoye returned to Shanghai City to have a reunion dinner with her family on New Year's Eve. On the first day of the first month, she had already rushed back to Cliff Mountain City to preside over the construction work. To be continued. Chapter 367. While the Mountain and Sea Alliance was holding their conference, the Yin-Huang Alliance was also making their move. Capital District, Handan County. Second brother's appetite is not small at all. Di Chan was leaning against the window, his posture tall and straight, but his expression was a little lonely. Outside the window, the white snow covered the land, and the land was clean and white. The heavy snow last night had covered up the dirt of the world and made the land spotless. You agreed to him? Peerless Elegance was wearing a white fur coat, sitting by the window, holding a cup of hot tea in his hand, his expression calm. The hot tea gave off steam, forming a thin layer of smoke in the air. Under the light smoke, Peerless Elegance was like a celestial being, extraordinary and refined. Agreed to him? How is that possible? Deechin smiled coldly. I worked hard to build up Handan County. My second brother, on the other hand, was just watching from the sidelines. Now that we've suffered a setback, he wants to seize power. How naive. After venting his dissatisfaction, Di Chun let out a long sigh. Grandpa is very disappointed in me. Di Chin's words did not seem to match, but it made Peerless Elegance silent. Thinking of that kind-looking old man, her calm face couldn't help but twitch, as if she was thinking of something unpleasant. Actually, it's not just second brother who's restless. This time, we were able to successfully unify the Xianhua Basin. If you say there's nothing fishy going on, I won't believe it even if you beat me to death. Di Chan could see the current situation very clearly, and he knew his brothers and sisters very well. Peerless Elegance was startled. What are you going to do? Huh? Di Chan laughed coldly. They think they're doing it secretly, but they don't know that I'm also beating them at their own game. When that time comes, it'll be like drawing water with a sieve, and they'll be crying. Peerless Elegance raised an eyebrow, but didn't reply. The current Di Chan was getting more and more shrewd, and sometimes even Peerless Elegance couldn't figure out his thoughts. The dragon must soar, and the dragon must soar. Di Chan looked up at the sky outside the window and said in a low voice, How can there be no clothes? Just you wait. Our battle is far from over. Xianyang District, Danyang District. Unlike Di Chen's brothers and sisters, Lord Chunshin had long since established himself as the sole successor of the clan. His operation to sweep through the Jingzhou had progressed extremely smoothly. Even so, Lord Chunshin still could not feel happy. Based on the family's tradition, those who cooperated with Lord Chunshin in managing the surrounding territories were all members of the family's branch family, or some members of the direct line of descent who were unsuccessful. The true elites of the clan were all hidden in the various king cities. They used their family's capital and business resources to set up merchant guilds in the various king cities and did very well. According to the rules, the major chambers of commerce had to hand over 30% of their profits to Danyang County every month to support the development of the main base. This kind of institutional arrangement was also the fundamental reason why Lord Chunshin had so much money in his hands. However, following the end of the Lianzhou battle, Lord Chunshin's terrible performance caused his prestige to suffer a serious setback. His ability was also questioned by all sides of the family. Some chambers of commerce had already begun to falsify accounts under the hints of their masters in an attempt to reduce the profits on their books in order to achieve the goal of reducing the offerings. They're hitting us when we're down. Lord Chunshin flew into a rage after listening to the chief steward's report, smashing the teacup in his hand to pieces. Danyang County had suffered heavy casualties in the Lianzhou battle and needed a large sum of money to rebuild the army. At this time, his brothers and sisters wanted to reduce the offerings. How could Lord Chunshin not be angry? Young master, please calm down. The chief steward's heart trembled. He hurriedly ordered the servants to clean up the floor. Lord Chunshin's expression was gloomy. Gnashing his teeth, he said, Since they are heartless, don't blame me for being unjust. Young master, what brilliant plan do you have? The chief steward played the role of a lackey appropriately. I want to see father and expose their shameful deeds. Lord Chunshin's greatest reliance was his father's absolute support. Not only that, I want to send auditors to check the accounts of the major chambers of commerce." The chief steward timely added, "It would be best if there were permanent auditors to monitor their accounts. In this way, the major chambers of commerce would be like a fishbone stuck in their throats. They can no longer hide their accounts." "Not bad, this is a good idea." Lord Chunshin looked appreciatively at the chief steward. He thought to himself, "It seems that my heart is not ruthless enough. In the past, I was a little too lenient towards these brothers and sisters. Young master, to tell you the truth, even if the major chambers of commerce pay the full amount of offerings, there is still a shortfall in funds. It will be very difficult for the territory to recover in a short period of time." Although the chief steward was a lackey, he was a very capable lackey. Otherwise, Lord Chunshin would not have trusted him so much and always relied on him as a confidant. Lord Chunshin frowned and said, "How much more?" Hearing this, the chief steward stretched out his palm and said, "There is a shortfall of at least 50,000 gold coins." 50,000? Are you sure you did not make a mistake?" Lord Chunshin was shocked. "There is no mistake. I have calculated it repeatedly." The chief steward solemnly vowed and spoke with sincerity. Of course, he would not tell Lord Chunshin that for every offering the chambers of commerce paid, he, as the chief steward, had to go through it and take advantage of it. "I understand. You may leave." Lord Chunshin waved his hand, his expression grave. "Yes." The chief steward stood up and took his leave. Lord Chunshin stayed alone in his study, but he was struggling in his heart. He was weighing the pros and cons. If he proposed to his father to raise the ratio of profits paid by the major chambers of commerce to 40%, would it be acceptable? Although his father absolutely supported him, he could not ignore the existence of his other uncles. However, the huge shortfall in funds forced Lord Chunshin to take the risk out of desperation. "I don't care anymore." A trace of viciousness flashed across Lord Chunshin's face. He stood up and left the study. "Brothers and sisters, this time, I will let you lift a rock to smash your own feet." Lord Chunshin's expression was sinister. "Also, how can I say I have no clothes? The blood feud is as deep as the sea, and we cannot live under the same sky. Jianyi District, Qishui District. If one were to say who had lost the most face in the Battle of Lian Province, it would definitely be the Warwolf." Although Lord Chunshin's defeat was unsightly, the one who had truly formulated the battle plan was the Qishui District. Half of the responsibility for the defeat of Lian Province had to be borne by the Qishui District. As the representative of the Qishui District, the Warwolf naturally could not escape the blame. At the last moment, if not for Di Qin's rescue, he, the Warwolf, would have suffered the same fate as Sha Poen died. His subordinate general, Zhao Zhuang, was able to reunite with Zhao Kuo. After the battle, the Warwolf locked himself in the study and did not come out for several days. Even the command of the army to unify Qinghe Province was accomplished by the three generals, Blood Wolf, Vicious Wolf, and Ghost Wolf. Bai Qi had taught the middle-aged general next to the Warwolf a good lesson. How should one fight a war with cold weapons? The defeat of the Allied forces was due to their arrogance and underestimation of the enemy. If they had joined forces with the Grassland Army from the beginning and directly besieged Shanghai City with the momentum of a thunderbolt, they might have had a chance of winning. In the end, they watched helplessly as the Allied forces of the Grassland were gradually nibbled away before they slowly made their appearance. They divided their forces into two groups, but neither group was successful. Sometimes having a big appetite was not a good thing. They were arrogant and underestimated the enemy. They had underestimated Shanghai City's infiltration and surveillance of Lianzhou Basin. As a result, as soon as the Allied forces appeared, they were discovered by Shanghai City's spies, which directly caused the opportunity to besiege them to be stillborn. They had also underestimated the combat power of the elite troops of Shanghai City. In the Battle of Gushin County, Shanghai City showed the Allied forces what an elite force was. All of this made the Warwolf feel ashamed. It was not until the end of the year that the war wolf walked out of the shadow of war. A fall into the pit, a gain in your wit. The defeat of Lianzhou was not necessarily a bad thing for the war wolf. The current war wolf had become more pragmatic. He chose to lie low and concentrate on training a true elite army. Next time, he would compete with Shanghai City. The elite division trained by the war wolf would all be equipped with chainmail, and the soldiers would all be retired soldiers who had changed professions to generals. They would be disciplined and orderly in battle. The name of this army was Red Blood. Xuanzhou District, Bawang County. Xiongba had escaped in the Battle of Lianzhou. Other than losing some ordinary soldiers, Bawang County did not suffer any major losses. The strength of Bawang County had long recovered and even improved. Similarly, Bawang County had completed the unification of Chu Prefecture. Everything had its pros and cons. There was a price to pay for doing something. The price that Xiongba paid was to be suspected by the alliance, and Lord Chunxin was the worst. The close working relationship between him and Lord Chunxin had completely disappeared. When the alliance met, Lord Chunxin directly frowned at Xiongba and ignored him. The relationship between the two instantly fell to a freezing point. Xiongba did not mind this, because he was an ambitious person. Taking advantage of the depression of the Yan-Huang alliance, Xiongba finally revealed his claws and teeth. He joined forces with Wandering Huan, who was also unharmed, to establish his own mountain and become the third pole of the Yan-Huang alliance. Xiongba officially got rid of the shadow of Lord Chunxin and began to exert greater influence in the Yan-Huang alliance. The competition between him and Di Chen also began to enter a white-hot stage. If it was said that between Xiongba and Lord Chunxin, there would be a day when they could reconcile, then between him and Di Chen, there was really a natural enmity. This enmity was not only limited to Xiongba and Di Chen, but it was a confrontation between the two families. Because of this, although Xiongba had suffered a defeat in the Battle of Lianzhou, his position in the family did not fall, but instead rose. This was because the family saw that in the competition with the Di family, there was hope of winning. The other three members of the Yan-Huang alliance were not lying low, but were really quiet. Military Kill Ripper had suffered a great loss and had become mortal enemies with Wandering Huan. Moreover, their territories were both in the Xianyang district. This was going to be a good show. The last member of the Yan-Huang alliance, Feng Tianlai, was still at the stage of being a bystander, not worth mentioning. To be continued. Chapter 368. P.S. 5715425584. The author has hand-drawn maps of China and Lianzhou County in the group. You can check them out if you're interested. Gaia Year 2, March 1st, Cliff Mountain City. The three elite groups of Snow Death Rose Mercenary Group, Breeze Pavilion, and Listen to the Rain Tower, totaling 1,500 elite players, were teleported to Cliff Mountain City. After the three guilds formed an alliance, they had a tacit understanding. The elite group of Snow Rose Mercenary Group was personally led by Lin Jing, and the other two guilds were led by the leaders of their elite groups. This arrangement was equivalent to acknowledging the leadership of Snow Rose Mercenary Group. Sun Xiaoye came out to receive the three elite groups. They would rent a courtyard in Cliff Mountain City as a foothold and supply point. For the elite groups, there were two places to explore. One was the secret realm of Nanshan Mountain, which was also the focus of the elite group's exploration. Although Nanshan Mountain Cave could be explored repeatedly, there would be extra rewards for clearing it for the first time. The system would also make an announcement, which was a very rare opportunity to promote the guilds. There was only one Nanshan Mountain Cave, but there were three guilds, which required coordination. Lin Jing came out and gathered the three leaders for a discussion. The result of the discussion was that the three guilds would take turns exploring in the order of Snow Rose Mercenary Group, Breeze Pavilion, and Tower of the Rain. Who could get the first clear reward would depend on their own abilities. Although Snow Rose Mercenary Group was the first to explore, they didn't have any advantages. According to the information disclosed by Evil Mercenary Group, if a player died while exploring the secret realm, they could reincarnate without any losses. However, after reincarnation, they couldn't enter the secret realm again. They had to wait for the next opportunity. At the same time, a player could reincarnate without any losses in the same secret realm up to 3 times. If they died after 3 times, they would be reincarnated for real, and their level would be reset to 0. Gaia's arrangement wasn't out of mercy, but because the exploration of the secret realm was very difficult. It was almost impossible to clear the secret realm on the first try. It was reported that evil mercenary group spent 1.5 months exploring the secret realm. They went through 5 waves of people and died more than 2,000 times before they barely cleared the secret realm. The greater the gain, the greater the risk. It turned out that Bloody Romance's gain was more than enough to make up for the loss. At the same time, different mystic realms also had a limit on the number of people who could enter. The maximum number of people in the South Mountain Grotto Heaven was 100. Therefore, an elite team could be divided into 5 teams and take turns to explore. According to the type of secret realm, the number of times it could be open was also different. The fortuitous encounter secret realm could only be explored once. Regardless of whether one managed to clear it or not, the fortuitous encounter secret realm would disappear upon completion. The scroll could be explored once a day until the stage was cleared. After clearing the stage, it would disappear. The public secret realm would be opened once a day in the morning and once in the afternoon, and it would never disappear. The Nanshan Mystic Realm was a public mystic realm that opened twice a day. There were 3 elite groups and 15 teams. Basically, it would only be their turn once a week. Even so, there was still one team that had to skip. Therefore, when they were not exploring the arcane realm, they had to go to the second pioneering land, the Five Fingers Mountain. The elite team's target was naturally not the ordinary wild beasts, but the desolate beasts that filled the Five Fingers Mountain. This way, not only could they level up, but they could also obtain high-grade materials. If he was lucky, he might even obtain a desolate beast's inner core. Apart from that, players could also use contract scrolls to sign contracts with dire beasts. They could be used as pets, mounts, or battle partners. Therefore, the Cliff State was simply a paradise for the elite team. After the elite team rested, they prepared to go to the Nanshan Grotto Heaven for the first exploration. The day before the elite team arrived, the 3rd batch of immigrants had already set off from the North Seaport. The main force of the immigrants was 10,000 farmers who were transferred from all over Lianzhou County. Their mission was to reclaim the wasteland. The Cliff Mountain City had to complete the reclamation of the wasteland before the Qingming Festival so that the first season of rice would not be delayed. Accompanying them was the Tiger Troop. Apart from that, there were also hundreds of merchant ships. The establishment of the Cliff Mountain City was undoubtedly a boost to the confidence of the major chambers of commerce, especially when they heard that the Marquis of Lianzhou was going to send 2 elite divisions to guard the Cliff Mountain City. The chambers of commerce were even more relieved. The rich natural resources of the Cliff State had completely touched the sensitive nerves of the chambers of commerce, and they all increased their investment. The chambers of commerce bought large tracts of land in the Cliff Mountain City to build shops and various workshops. At the same time, they also rented large tracts of wasteland outside the city to reclaim farms. Therefore, the fleets of the chambers of commerce, in addition to all kinds of materials, also included a large number of laborers they recruited from the royal city. According to Ouyang Shua's request, the laborers of the chambers of commerce also had to be citizens of the Cliff Mountain City. As a result, the development of the Cliff Mountain City began to enter the fast lane. Due to Binger's noble status, Ouyang Shua's initial strategy to manage the Cliff Mountain City was to bring in a large number of immigrants. Only taking people from Lianzhou County was somewhat like robbing Peter to pay Peter. The 3rd batch of immigrants was the last batch of support for the Cliff Mountain City from Lianzhou County. As for the rest of the population, they had to think of other ways such as guiding the chambers of commerce to bring in a large number of laborers, guiding adventure players, or targeting the natives of Jingzhou Island. In short, Ouyang Shua would never allow the Cliff Mountain City to develop step by step. With the strong support of Lianzhou County, the Cliff Mountain City was destined to take a completely different path of rapid development from Lianzhou County. In March, Ouyang Shuo was patrolling Lianzhou County while the Cliff Mountain City quietly developed. For the entire march, the other Lord-class players were also unusually quiet. After the Battle of Lianzhou County, the Yin-Huang Alliance completely went into hiding, silently accumulating strength. After achieving their goal, the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance also began to restrain themselves and began to digest the results of the war. The territorial wars in the China region caused by the Battle of Lianzhou County had completely stopped, and the wilderness had once again regained its peace. The rest of the Lord-class players were going through the integration of the regional alliances. Therefore, the wilderness was unusually quiet. Of course, the four major rebel armies were still expanding as usual. They were like a swarm of locusts in the wilderness, sweeping across the wilderness. In the midst of the silence, the only explosive news was that Lord Chunshin had been assassinated in Danyang County. A lord had been assassinated in his own territory. This was undoubtedly very sensational. For the various lords, it was extremely shocking. After the assassination, the various lords unanimously increased the number of guards around them. Even in their own territories, they did not dare to relax. To be assassinated in front of his subordinates and subjects was a huge blow to the prestige of the lords. What was even more strange was that the assassin did not seem to have any intention of hiding his identity. Less than 10 days after the assassination, Bloodshed publicly announced on the forum that they had planned and carried out the assassination. Taking this opportunity, Bloodshed began to publicly accept all kinds of assassination missions. The death of Lord Chunshin completely cemented Bloodshed's reputation. Compared to the Lord-class players, the Adventure-class players were much more active. The friction between the guilds continued to escalate. Small-scale guild wars would occur from time to time in the wilderness. As the guilds exerted their strength, it became increasingly difficult for players in small groups to survive. Due to the harsh death penalty, once a lone ranger died, not only would their level be reset to 0, they would not even be able to retrieve the set of equipment that they had painstakingly saved up. They were not like the guilds because they operated as a group. If they died, there would be team members to help collect the equipment. As for their levels, the guilds would arrange for people to help them level up, so they would recover very quickly. Lone rangers were not good. Once they died, they would not be able to turn over a new leaf. The direct result was that a portion of the players who died would become disheartened and turn to life profession players. According to Gaia's settings, players who died in battle would have a chance to choose a new profession when they reincarnated. Of course, there was only one chance. The next time they reincarnated, they would not be able to change it. A portion of the players who died in battle would enter the embrace of the major guilds after reincarnation, relying on the remaining guilds. Because of this, the major guilds absorbed a large amount of fresh blood, and the conflict further intensified. Jianghu began to be filled with killing. The color of blood began to spread among the adventure-type players. Affected by this, one of the 10 major guilds began to be in a difficult situation. It was a thread, as a pure life profession guild. A thread, as combat power was almost 0. As the members' skill levels increased, they needed more and more rare materials. And these materials were almost monopolized by the major guilds. The result was a thread, this increasingly awkward situation. Of course, a thread was still very tempting. Whether it was the lords or the guilds, they all coveted a thread as skill talents. Some guilds even threatened a thread with rare materials, requesting to annex a thread. Among them, the most unyielding was crisscrossing sword aura, which was also from the capital. Rumor had it that under crisscrossing sword aura, as strong pressure, a thread had already begun to lose members. At this moment, a dramatic scene happened. Star Alliance, which had set its headquarters in the capital, suddenly exerted its strength and announced its existence in a high-profile manner, gradually entering the player's field of vision. There were rumors that Star Alliance had also shown interest in a thread. Strangely, seeing Star Alliance make a move, crisscrossing sword aura began to retract. If there was no trick in this, he would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. Ouyang Shuan knew that this must be the result of Di Chen's mediation. For a time, Star Alliance's influence rose rapidly. Star Alliance also began to openly recruit members. Presumably, the secret family that Stars belonged to had finally decided to come out after a series of games and compromises. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.